Chapter 738. Longao was caught off guard by the old ancestor's sudden decision. But Longao knew that since the old ancestor had made such a decision, she definitely had her reasons. Tianwu continent, beside an extremely beautiful lake. Aoshue sat quietly beside the lake. Her eyes blurred as she looked at the ripples on the surface of the water. Aoshue, are you still thinking about him? Without even looking back, Aoshue already knew who had come. Nodding, Aoshue sighed and said softly, "Mother, could it be that we really can't be together?" A beautiful young woman slowly walked over from behind Aoshue. She looked 60 to 70% similar to Aoshue. This young woman was none other than Aoshue's mother, the Ghost King's wife. She was also in existence with the highest bloodline in the Phoenix race. Looking at her daughter's haggard face, Luing felt an indescribable pain in her heart. Sighing deeply, Luing said, "Aoshue, you should know that our statuses are different. We have the purest bloodline of the Phoenix race, so the Phoenix race will not allow us to mate with humans." "Why is that?" "Don't ask. This is the rule of the Phoenix race." Speaking of this, Lu Ying's face was filled with longing and guilt. She slowly said, "Back then, if it weren't for me staying with the Phoenix race, you and Tianji would already be dead." Aoshue was very angry and also very unwilling. She already knew why she had appeared in the Phoenix race. Although she was happy to see her mother, Aoshue also knew that she had also lost herself and her lover. "Mother, what should I do now?" "Aoshue, listen to mother's advice. It's best if you don't go looking for Longao. Otherwise, he'll definitely die." Afraid that her daughter would not listen, Luing continued, "The Phoenix race is the strongest existence in the Tianwu continent. It's even above the dragon race. If it weren't for the fact that there are so few of them, I'm afraid that in the entire continent, no one would be a match for the Phoenix race." Of course, Aoshue knew the strength of the Phoenix clan very well. It was because of this that she became more and more sad. Could it be that she and Longao were not fated to be together? He was unwilling to accept this. He was very unwilling to accept this. Aoshue would never forget Longao, even if it meant death. Aoshue was not afraid of death, but she was afraid that Longao would offend the Phoenix clan for her. Although she was very confident in Longao's talent and potential, no matter what, Longao would never be able to compete with the Phoenix clan. "Aoshue, since you possess the royal bloodline, you must sever your emotions. Otherwise, you will only harm yourself and others." "Mother, I can't accept this." "Mother knows, but what can I do? If I had the slightest idea, I wouldn't have left your father back then. All these years, I've been missing you all the time, but I didn't dare to look for you. If the Phoenix clan sent someone to kill you, I wouldn't have a good life." Aoshue had a rough understanding of her mother's strength. With her mother's strength, not to mention the 4 major forces in the Jojo continent, even the Dragon clan, the Long family, the Heaven and Earth sect, and the Wanshou sect were no match for her mother. Even so, her mother still didn't dare to look for her father because she was afraid that the Phoenix clan would kill her father. From this, one could imagine how powerful the Phoenix clan was. If even her mother couldn't, there was no way she could. Could it be that she really wouldn't be able to see Longao in this life? "Aoshue, not only can you not interact with Longao anymore, if there are no accidents, the clan will use all their strength to cultivate you and make you the holy maiden of the Phoenix clan. At that time, no matter who it is, no one will be able to get close to you. Even if it is because of the Phoenix clan, Longao will not be able to get close to you." "Mother, I was just about to ask you this. With your bloodline and strength, why can't you become the saintess of the Phoenix clan?" Speaking of this, not only did Lu Ying's expression return to normal, but it was also filled with determination and joy. This made Aoshue very curious. She didn't know what was going on with her mother. "Aoshue, you don't know. Although you and I both have the purest bloodline of the Phoenix clan, we have to maintain our virginity." Puffed. Without waiting for Lu Ying to finish her words, Aoshue suddenly laughed. "Aoshue, what are you laughing about?" Lu Ying seemed to have thought of something and asked impatiently, "Aoshue, tell mother, are you still a virgin?" Aoshue naturally wouldn't hide anything from her mother, especially under such circumstances. Nodding her head, Aoshue told her mother everything that happened between her and Longao. When she spoke of this, Her face was filled with joy and happiness. Seeing this situation, Luing felt helpless. This was because she had made the same mistake back then. Otherwise, she would be the saintess of the Phoenix clan now. Because of this, Luing didn't blame her daughter. She only said worriedly, "You're no longer a virgin. If the Phoenix clan finds out about this, you'll be in trouble. I have to think of a way to remedy this." Looking at her mother's serious expression, Aoshue didn't care. Life or death didn't matter. After all, if she couldn't be with Longao, what was the point of living? "Mother, we have the Phoenix bloodline. Will we really become phoenixes in the future?" This was what Aoshue was most concerned about. "Yes, but the chances are very small. Aoshue, you have to know that ordinary phoenixes don't matter. Once you and I become phoenixes and become true phoenixes, we'll be the greatest phoenixes in the world. However, the chances are very small." She finally let out a sigh of relief. Aoshue didn't want to become a phoenix. She only had one wish, and that was to live and die with Longao. They would never leave each other and be together forever. As for anything else, it was all nonsense. "I believe that Longao will come personally to marry me one day." Would he? Looking at her daughter's expectant face, Luing didn't want to discourage her. This was because in Lu Ying's opinion, in this world, unless there were a few people, no one would come to the Phoenix clan. It was simply courting death. However, things had already come to this point. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing for her daughter to have hope in her heart. "Aoshue, get ready. I'm here this time because the clan has already passed down an order. I'll bring you to see the clan leader later. If nothing goes wrong, you'll meet the ancestor of the Phoenix clan, the immemorial Phoenix. If you can become his disciple, then you'll have a chance to be with Longao in the future. Do you understand?" Luing was obviously lying. If she became the disciple of the immemorial Phoenix, then she wouldn't even have the last chance. However, Luing had to do this. She wanted her daughter to have a glimmer of hope in her heart. Nodding, Aoshue slowly stood up and said leisurely, "Mother, I understand. I'll work hard. No matter what, Longao and I will be together in the future. Life and death will never change." Chapter 739. Somewhere in the Tianwu continent. In the dark space, Yu Yin's figure shuttled back and forth between the mountains. At this moment, many black monsters appeared from all directions. They were all great emperor-level spiritual beasts and were very terrifying. The current Yu Yin was no longer the domineering woman from before. She was a calm and powerful female martial artist. Ever since she entered the mysterious place, Yu Yin's cultivation had broken through to the great emperor realm in just a few months. However, she was still a distance away from the titled Great Emperor Realm. Although she had not broken through to the titled Great Emperor Realm, Yu Yin was very powerful. There were hundreds of spiritual beasts in all directions, but they were still unable to do anything to Yu Yin. With the protection of the sect's divine weapon, Yu Yin was like a tiger that had grown wings. Kill. Yu Yin's eyes gradually turned red, and her body was filled with killing intent. If Longao saw Yu Yin at this moment, he might not even recognize her. Yu Yin struck out with both her palms. At most, she would need 3 moves to kill the great emperor spiritual beasts. In just a few minutes, hundreds of great emperor spiritual beasts were killed by Yu Yin. Not a single one was left alive. Standing in the dark space, Yu Yin looked around coldly and muttered to herself, "I will be able to break through to the titled Great Emperor Realm in at most 1 year. 3 years. Within 3 years, I must break through to the Supreme Tao Realm." Strong confidence made Yu Yin look even more charming. If it was said that the Yu Yin of the past gave people the feeling of a domineering woman, then the current Yu Yin was a mysterious feeling. There was an indescribable feeling. The 2 most important women in Longao's life were Aoshue and Yu Yin. Aoshue was from the Phoenix clan and had the purest bloodline. However, she could not control herself. She could not even be with the person she loved. Yu Yin was a member of the mysterious sect and had the strongest body constitution. However, she could not control herself. Similarly, she could not even be with the person she loved the most. Thinking about it, Yu Yin and Aoshue could not control themselves. They could not be with Longao. Longao, who was far away, stayed in the dragon sect alone and thought of the two people he loved the most. Longao Peak, underground. Aoshue, Yuin, how are you? Longao sighed deeply. After being separated for so long, Longao missed the two very much. However, Longao knew very well in his heart that with his current strength, it was impossible for him to find the two of them. Aoshue was from the Phoenix clan. If he had not sent Aoshue back to the Phoenix clan in time, Aoshue would have fallen into a coma for the 9th time. At that time, even the almighty immortal would not be able to save Aoshue. Although he was very reluctant, Longao could only send Aoshue back to the Phoenix clan for the sake of Aoshue's safety. As for Yuin, from the beginning to the end, Longao did not know where Yuin went. He only knew that Yuin was taken away by the underworld god. As for where she was taken to, he still did not know. In other words, whether it was Aoshue or Yuin, he would not be able to see them for the time being. Strength. In the end, what he lacked the most was strength. If he had super strength, then whether it was Aoshue or Yuin, he could successfully find them. Ao, do you miss them? Looking at his mother, Longao knew who she was talking about. He nodded. In front of his mother, Longao would always be a child. Sigh. The world is unpredictable. Mother also did not expect that the two people you like would be like this. Ao, what do you plan to do? Mu Lin was very worried. She knew the relationship between her son, Aoshue, and Yuin very well. If you don't leave, I will stay by your side in life and death. This love was enough to move heaven and earth. It was because of this that Mu Lin had no intention of breaking up the three of them. But Mu Lin knew very well that if her son did not handle this matter well, the consequences would be unimaginable. One was from the Phoenix clan, the strongest clan in the world, while the other had gone to a mysterious sect, which was also an extremely powerful existence. Mother, don't worry, I won't do anything rash. I will cultivate in seclusion with all my strength. If I don't break through the great emperor realm, I will definitely not look for Aoshue and Yuin. Hearing this, Mu Lin finally heaved a sigh of relief, but she still said worriedly, Ao, Mother knows that the feelings between you two cannot be separated, but Mother wants to tell you one thing. No matter what, you have to take care of yourself. Do you understand? Regarding the worry in his mother's heart, Longao naturally knew clearly. Longao nodded and did not say anything because he did not know what to say. His mother was not a fool. She definitely knew how dangerous it was for him to look for the two of them. Mother, you and father have already received the divine Tao inheritance. No matter what, I will help you break through the divine Tao realm. Longao gave one of the 1,000 over divine Tao inheritances to each of his parents. This was because Longao did not know when he would leave the sect. If his parents did not have a strong foundation, they would not be at ease even if they left. It was because of this that Longao gave one of the 1,000 over divine Tao inheritances to everyone in the family. He hoped that all of his relatives could become divine Tao warriors. Mu Lin nodded. Of course, she knew what Ao meant. She said, "Don't worry, your father and I will choose to cultivate in seclusion later. I hope we can break through to the divine Tao warriors." If it was the Mu Lin of the past, she would definitely not know what a divine Tao warrior was. However, at this moment, Mu Lin clearly knew what a divine Tao warrior meant. As the strongest existence in the world, if she could become a divine Tao warrior, then she would have the power to protect herself and let Ao have less to worry about. His parents and everyone else chose to cultivate in seclusion. The entire dragon sect would not appear in front of everyone for a short period of time. Longao had already decided that within 3 years, or even 5 years, the dragon sect would not appear. After all, if everyone could not refine the divine Tao inheritances, even if they went out, it would be troublesome. After sending his mother away, Longao did not waste any time. He began to cultivate and comprehend the chaotic stone tablet, the way of divination, and the so-called 5 elements heaven-swallowing technique. Beginner Saint King. The next thing to do was to think of all ways to become a peak Saint King in the shortest time possible. This way, he could advance towards Saint Emperor. Saint King, Saint Emperor, Saint Venerable, Saint Emperor. Above Saint King, there were still 3 whole realms to prepare for breaking through to Great Emperor. Although it was only a short 3 realms, Longao clearly knew that it was not an easy task to advance from a beginner Holy King all the way to the peak of the Holy Emperor realm. Although he was confident in his talent, Longao knew that it would take at least 3 years to break through to Saint Emperor. In other words, 3 years later, he could set off to find Yuan. Chapter 740. Everything was so calm. The grudge between Longao and the serene underworld mansion seemed to have been written off. Both the Longao and the serene underworld mansion were quiet. Under normal circumstances, Longao had provoked the Nether Hell Mansion time and time again. With the Nether Hell Mansion's reputation and strength, they definitely wouldn't let Longao go. But now, the serene underworld mansion didn't continue to deal with Longao. Everyone was curious as to what the serene underworld mansion was up to. If the serene underworld mansion didn't do anything, the other 3 forces wouldn't do anything either. In the Imperial City, the rank 3 Long family and the Ethereal Palace were also quite depressed about this matter. The 3 forces thought that even if the battle between Longao and the serene underworld mansion couldn't end in mutual destruction, at least Longao would die and the serene underworld mansion would be severely injured. This way, the 3 forces would be able to reap the benefits. What made everyone curious was, where had the dragon sect gone? 3 days later, Long Batian had successfully entered the reincarnation path, but it was unknown whether he would succeed. Longao held the old ancestor's divine sense in his hand. According to the old ancestor, he would need at most 5 or even 3 years to find the old ancestor's reincarnated body. As for where the old ancestor would enter the reincarnation path, it was unknown. It wouldn't be easy to find the old ancestor's reincarnated body in the vast continent. Longao didn't continue to dwell on this problem. He knew that it would take at least 3 years to find the old ancestor. The most important thing now was to cultivate and improve his strength. Thousands of people in the dragon sect were cultivating in seclusion to refine the divine Tao inheritance. Even if he stayed, it would be useless. Longao discovered one thing, and that was that cultivating in seclusion all the time did not have much benefit. Because of this, Longao prepared to leave the sect and go out to gain experience. He wanted to break through to the great Emperor realm in the shortest time possible. Crimson Province. The 99 Steps. Longao prepared to continue climbing to the top of the 99 steps. This time, Longao did not want to see Yigudu. He only wanted to continue to test the pressure of the 99 steps and see if it was beneficial to his cultivation. Right now, there was not a single person on the 99 steps of the celestial stairway. The reason was simple. Ever since the 4 great forces withdrew from the spirit domain of the 9 states and the dragon sect took over the Crimson Province, although it was clearly stated that everyone had the opportunity to come and try the 99 steps of heaven, with the continuous war between the dragon sect and the 4 great forces, there were constantly people from the 4 great forces mixed in. In desperation, the Ghost King could only order to completely seal off the 99 steps of heaven. Longao didn't know about this. The Ghost King's intention was actually very simple. He wanted to wait for the dragon sect to deal with the 4 great forces before opening the 99 steps to heaven. Longao had already successfully stepped onto the top of the 99 steps twice, so the 3rd time was not very difficult. He just wanted to give it a try. However, Longao never thought that even stepping onto the 99 steps of heaven for the 3rd time would have considerable benefits for his cultivation. Just like that, Longao climbed again and again. His cultivation also broke through from the beginner Saint King to the intermediate Saint King. However, he was stuck at the advanced Saint King and was unable to break through. Unknowingly, 10 days had passed. Longao realized that his cultivation had stagnated again. Even if he continued to climb the 99 steps of heaven, it would probably be very difficult for him to break through to the advanced Saint King. On the 11th day, Longao's expression suddenly changed, because he realized that there were suddenly many people around him. Almost all of them were disciples of the 4 great forces. It seemed that the 4 great forces could not hold back in the end. According to the previous situation, ever since the 4 great forces withdrew from the spirit domain of the 9 states, they had not stepped in again for such a long time. But now, the dragon sect had disappeared for no reason. After repeated confirmation, the four great forces finally prepared to enter the 9 states. The first was to occupy the so-called 99 steps of heaven. The four great forces still had not given up on the 9 states. Longao naturally knew why the four great forces were clinging onto the 9 states. The reason was very simple. It was because of the grave of the gods. But the grave of the gods was not in the 9 states at all. It was in the city of Sin in the spirit domain of the 9 states. Regarding this matter, other than Longao, the four great forces did not know at all. Hence, the four great forces still did not forget to dominate the 9 states and search for the so-called grave of the gods. Taking a step back, even if the grave of the gods was found by the four great forces, it would be for naught. Because the thousands of divine path inheritances in the grave of the gods had all been taken away by Longao. He snorted coldly. Longao did not feel the slightest bit surprised about the disciples of the four great forces suddenly entering the Crimson State. However, he would not let the four great forces off so easily. But this time, Longao did not make a move on these so-called ordinary disciples. The reason was very simple. As his cultivation level continued to rise, Longao's state of mind also gradually changed. No matter what, this was a grudge between him and the four great forces. It had nothing to do with the ordinary disciples. It was also because of this that the ordinary disciples of the four great forces could be considered to have dodged a calamity. Not continuing to stay on the 99 steps, Longao got up and left. Next, Longao prepared to continue to the spirit domain of the 9 states. In other words, he would officially start a war with the four great forces. Longao had already thought it through. He would leave the 9 states sooner or later to find Yuan. If he could not deal with the four great forces, then he would always leave behind trouble for the sect. In other words, before he left, he had to deal with the four great forces of the spirit domain of the 9 states. The spirit domain of the 9 states had a total of four great forces. They were the Eastern Imperial City, the Western Third Grade Long Family, the Southern Nether Mansion, and the Northern Ethereal Palace. The Nether Mansion's strength was unfathomable. They also had the support of a mysterious sect behind them. Hence, Longao decided to deal with the Imperial City, Ethereal Palace, and the Third Grade Long Family first. As for the so-called Nether Mansion, he would deal with it later. The spirit domain of the 9 states. This time, Longao did not come alone. Instead, he came with millions of corpse slaves. Moreover, he came openly and did not put the four great forces in his eyes. Because of this, everyone was shocked. They did not know what Longao wanted to do. After all, Longao had just been chased by the Nether Mansion. Now that he appeared openly in the spirit domain of the 9 states, was he not afraid that the Nether Mansion would continue to pursue him? Not to mention others, even the four great forces were shocked. They did not know what Longao wanted to do. Could it be that Longao wanted to fight the four great forces alone? If it was someone else, no one would believe it. Everyone would think that they were courting death. However, Longao was different. Those who understood Longao knew what kind of personality he had. He was a typical person who was not afraid of death. Even so, the Imperial City, the Third Grade Long Family, and the Ethereal Palace did not move. These three great forces were waiting to watch a good show. According to the grudge between Longao and the Nether Mansion, they believed that the Nether Mansion would not let him go so easily after he entered the spirit domain of the 9 states. Chapter 741. No one knew what Longao meant. Even so, the Imperial City, Long Family, and Ethereal Palace were on high alert. If it was just Longao alone, he believed that the three great forces would not put him in their eyes. But the problem now was that Longao brought along an army of over 1 million corpse slaves. This was not something to joke about. Still, the three forces didn't make a move, waiting to reap the benefits. Everyone, including the three forces, thought that the Nether Mansion would continue to pursue Longao. But what was the result? Everyone was taken aback. Not only did the serene Nether Mansion not chase after Longao, they even quieted down completely. The Nether Mansion's actions confused everyone. They didn't know what the Nether Mansion was trying to do and why they didn't kill Longao. It should be known that Longao had caused havoc in the Netherworld Mansion, provoking them time and time again. Not only had he taken away the Netherworld Mansion's treasure, but he had also killed their disciples. Not to mention the Netherworld Mansion, it was likely that no one would be willing to let this matter go. Longao was pleasantly surprised that the Nether Mansion didn't make a move. Longao also couldn't figure out what the Nether Mansion was trying to do. As the leader of the four forces, the Nether Mansion had a divine realm cultivator. Longao naturally didn't want to start a war with the Nether Mansion. That was why Longao went to the Imperial City first. Imperial City. The Imperial City's ancestor, Shun He, had a gloomy expression. If it was just Longao, the Imperial City wouldn't be worried. But the corpse slave army was something that the Imperial City feared. Everyone knew how terrifying the corpse slave army was. Back then, the dragon sect had relied on the corpse slave army to defeat the four forces. More importantly, the corpse slave army was immortal and could fight 100 enemies. In this way, Longao had the upper hand. If Longao insisted on destroying the Imperial City, it wasn't impossible. No matter what, not everyone in the Imperial City was a powerhouse. Out of fear, the Imperial City did not dare to confront Longao head-on and settled for the next best thing. Longao obviously wasn't willing to leave the matter at that. He had already decided to have a life and death battle with the four major forces to remove all obstacles in the future. Within the Imperial City, the million-strong corpse demon army swarmed in. Longao did not slaughter them. Those who were willing to leave the Imperial City were all let go. Those who were stubborn were killed without mercy. It had to be said that Longao's state of mind had indeed changed. If it was in the past, he would have already started slaughtering the Imperial City. At the moment of life and death, many people chose to leave the Imperial City. But there were also many people who chose to stay and live and die with the Imperial City. Although Longao didn't want to start a massacre, he understood the principle of cutting weeds without removing the roots, or they would grow again when the spring breeze blew. Just as the Imperial City was about to be breached by the corpse demon army, the other three major forces, including the Nether Mansion, finally came to the Imperial City's aid. If Longao didn't say that after dealing with the Imperial City, he would deal with the other three forces, Ethereal Palace, Long Family, and Nether Mansion would not meddle in other people's business. They would be happy if the Imperial City was destroyed. However, the three major forces were very wary of Longao's corpse demon army. They had no choice but to help. For a long time, the four major forces had been fighting openly and secretly. If it wasn't for the Dragon Sect's sudden intervention, the four major forces would never have joined forces. But because of the fear of the corpse demon army, the four major forces were prepared to join forces in the end. The rank 3 Long Family, Nether Mansion, and Ethereal Palace all knew that if Longao brought the corpse demon army to destroy the Imperial City, then they would have to deal with the three major forces next. As the overlords of the 9-state spirit domain, the four major forces' foundation and strength were there. They forcibly resisted the attack of the million corpse demon army. Although the corpse demon army was immortal in name, it could still be destroyed. However, to destroy a realm king, a half-step sage was needed. In this way, the four major forces had to send out a lot of experts. Otherwise, they would be slowly eroded by the corpse demon army. The million corpse demon army was simply too many. It was like a wave. However, Longao didn't kill them all. He didn't want to create too many killing intent, especially the blood pool in the dragon seal space. It was his nemesis. Once there were too many killing intent and the blood pool took advantage of the situation, the consequences would be unimaginable. Because of this, Longao stationed the corpse demon army outside the Imperial City and completely sealed the Imperial City. Not to mention a person, even a fly wouldn't be able to fly out. Imperial City, Great Hall. Imperial City's old ancestor Shan He, Ethereal Sect's old ancestor Wei Lin, Long Family's old ancestor Long Yang, and Nether Sect's old ancestor Yu Ming. The four titled Great Emperors sat together and discussed how to deal with Longao's corpse demon army, especially the Imperial City's ancestor, Shun He. No matter what, this time, Longao brought the corpse slave army, and the first wave of attack was the Imperial City. Fortunately, the three families arrived in time. Otherwise, whether or not the Imperial City could be saved was still the biggest problem. A mere Saint King could be easily annihilated by any expert they sent out. However, Longao's corpse demon army was incomparably powerful. Actually, in Shen He's heart, there was still one thing that he couldn't figure out. That was why Longao didn't choose any of the other forces, but chose him. Speaking of life and death grudges, the four major forces and Longao were like fire and water. So why did he choose him? He cursed fiercely in his heart. However, Shunhee's voice was indifferent as he said, "The three of you. I believe you already know the whole story. Longao's intention is clear. This time, it seems that he wants to destroy our four major forces and dominate the spirit region of the 9 states." Although he didn't finish his words, the meaning in his words was very clear. Because of this, the other three's faces were very gloomy and as ugly as they could be. Shunhee, Longao brought the corpse demon army to deal with you and not us. I believe you should know about this. This time, we have already taken a great risk by coming here. Brother Wei is right. Shunhee, today's matter is clearly Longao finding trouble with you. In fact, it has nothing to do with us at all. Seeing that you and I have known each other for so many years, we are just doing our best. Hearing the two's words, He cursed the three's 18 generations of ancestors in his heart. Shameless. Simply too shameless. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such shameless people. They were clearly afraid of the corpse demon army behind Longao, and were afraid that Longao would bring the corpse demon army to attack them. Friendship? Bullshit friendship. If it wasn't because they were afraid of the corpse demon army behind Longao, He was 100% sure that the three wouldn't have brought a single soldier to help him. They were simply lying through their teeth. This kind of person was super disgusting. He clearly despised the three, but He was very clear in his heart that the Imperial City needed the help of the three forces at this moment. Once the three forces left, how could his side resist the million-strong corpse demon army? Because of this, He chose to compromise. Chapter 742. It was very helpless. He sighed deeply and said, "Thank you for your help." Before the three could speak, He continued, "You three shouldn't be stupid. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come. Let's not beat around the bush. Given the grudges between the four major forces, if possible, you would definitely be willing to see the Imperial City die." The three didn't expect He to be so direct. Since the matter was already out in the open, the three didn't waste any more words. He, since you don't know what's good for you, we'll retreat first. Whatever. He, you. Before Longyang and the others could speak, He continued, "I believe you three should understand the situation. Therefore, let's sit down and have a good talk. Although I'm willing to compromise, if you want to ride on my head this time, sorry, I can't do it." Hearing this, the three sat down again. The three sighed heavily in their hearts. They had no choice. They were indeed very wary of Longao, especially the corpse demon army behind Longao. Next, the four titled Great Emperors began to discuss how to deal with Longao. 6 hours later, dusk had just descended, and the four titled Great Emperors were in the air above the Imperial City. At this moment, Longao suddenly shot out from the corpse demon army. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of the four titled Great Emperors. Looking coldly at the four, Longao despised them in his heart. Longao was just a small piece of trash in Scarlet Fire Town. However, in just a few short years, he had risen up to the point where he dared to go against the four major forces. With his strength alone, he scared the four major forces so much that they had no choice but to team up and jointly request to meet him. What was the meaning of this? It was very simple. The four titled Great Emperors were obviously afraid. "Longao, what do you mean? Get straight to the point." Longao snorted and said, "Wei Ling, Shunhee, Longyang, Yu Ming, I believe you all know what I mean. Since that's the case, I'll get straight to the point. My meaning is very simple. As long as the four major forces withdraw from the 9 continents spirit region and head to the South Pole, I'll let bygones be bygones. From then on, we'll mind our own business." Arrogant. It had to be said that Longao was truly arrogant. Only Longao would dare to speak to the four titled Great Emperors in such a manner. It was impossible for the four great forces to withdraw from the spirit realm of the 9 prefectures. The 4 great titled Great Emperors would never agree to it. Before the 4 of them could speak, Longao waved his hand and said with a sneer, "Say no more. I know you won't agree. In that case, let's cut the crap. Let's fight. If you win, not only will I immediately withdraw from the Imperial City, I will never step into the spirit domain of the 9 states again. But if you lose, it's not up to you to withdraw from the spirit domain of the 9 states." Hearing this, the 4 titled Great Emperors' faces instantly darkened. For so many years, no one had ever dared to speak to them like this. It was as if they were looking down on them. Even if they could tolerate it, they couldn't. Even if they could tolerate it, they couldn't tolerate it. But the 4 of them still tolerated it in the end. They knew that the reason Longao was so confident wasn't because of his own strength, but because Longao had the Corpse Demon Army as his backing. Of course, he had the confidence. Long Yang said unhappily, "Longao, no matter what, you will always be a disciple of the Long family. Now, as a 3rd-rank Long family, I order you to take your Corpse Demon Army and withdraw from the Imperial City. Immediately, immediately." Longao's family was originally a 9th-rank Long family. However, due to Longao's strong rise, the Long family rose from the 9th rank to a 6th-rank Long family. However, a 6th-rank Long family would always be a 6th-rank Long family. It couldn't compete with a 3rd-rank Long family. Under normal circumstances, the old ancestor of a 3rd-rank family would indeed have the authority to order Longao. If it were anyone else, they would definitely withdraw from the Imperial City immediately. However, Longao's situation was completely different. Longao smiled. He didn't put Longyang in his eyes at all. He also didn't put the 3rd-rank Long family in his eyes. Otherwise, he wouldn't have created the Dragon Sect. Even a fool wouldn't be able to guess what Longao meant by creating the Dragon Sect. "Longyang, who do you think you are?" "Longao, you." Longyang waved his hand. Without waiting for Longyang to continue speaking, Longao said with disdain, "Longyang, who do you think you are? What 3rd-rank Long family? I can tell you clearly that I'm no longer a member of the Long family. I only belong to the Dragon Sect." Longyang's words didn't sit well with the other 3, let alone Longyang. However, the 3 of them clearly knew that Longao did have the ability to do so. An army of 1,000,000 corpse demons wasn't a joke. "Longao, what do you want?" "Destroy your 4 great forces. Otherwise, your 4 great forces will withdraw from the spirit region of the 9 states. You can choose any one of these 2 paths. Longao, you're courting death." The 4 great titled Great Emperors were completely enraged. If they could still endure this, then where would their 4 great forces' face go? Where would their 4 great forces' face go? However, Longyang waved his hand and said, "Longao, you can ignore us, but you can't ignore the Long family." Longao didn't say anything. He just looked coldly at them. "Longao, you selfishly created the Dragon Sect. It's obvious that you're leaving the Long family. If nothing unexpected happens, the Long family will definitely deal with you. Therefore, why don't we sit down and talk about a deal? As long as you stop, we can speak for you when the Long family comes looking for trouble. How about it? Who do you think you are?" Longao was very depressed. He didn't know where Longyang got his confidence from. Would the Long family put Longyang in their eyes? The Long family wouldn't even put the 4 great forces in their eyes, let alone a 3rd-grade Long family. If the Long family insisted on dealing with him, then no matter who came forward, it would be nonsense. It was precisely because of this that Longao didn't believe Longyang's nonsense. Longao was 100% sure that if the Long family wanted to deal with him, the first people to hit him while he was down would be Longyang and the other 3. Speak for him? Who were they trying to fool? Since that's the case, kill. With Longao's command, the 1,000,000 corpse demon army was ready to move. The 4 great titled Great Emperors' faces were very ugly. They didn't know how to deal with the 1,000,000 corpse demon army. "You brought this upon yourselves. You can't blame others. Longao, you're digging your own grave. It's none of your business." Since things had already reached this stage, Longao naturally wouldn't let it go. He wanted to use this opportunity to suppress the 4 great forces. However, At this moment, a terrifying divine Tao aura shrouded them. Longao, you're too presumptuous. Chapter 743. A dignified voice sounded. The supreme Tao aura was too powerful, suppressing the million corpse slaves. What was going on? Seeing a supreme Tao martial artist make a move, Wei Ling, Shun He, and Long Yang were overjoyed. Only Yu Ming could not figure out why the old ancestor would suddenly make a move. However, the supreme Tao martial artist that appeared was not the so-called old ancestor Wei Yang. He was about 60 or 70 years old, and his short stature appeared very thin and weak, giving people the impression that he was too weak to stand up to a gust of wind. If the old man was placed among ordinary people, no one would dare to imagine that such a weak old man would be a supreme Tao martial artist, and a heavenly god martial artist at that. The 5 realms of the supreme Tao were divided into the nihility god realm, spirit focus realm, human god realm, earth god realm, and heavenly god realm. Heavenly god martial artists were considered to be standing at the peak of the martial Tao. Longao's expression was very ugly, because he could clearly feel the powerful supreme Tao aura that suddenly appeared from the old man in front of him. A heavenly god martial artist, he never thought that a heavenly god martial artist would suddenly appear. A super expert on the same level as the old ancestor Longbatian. Could it be that this person had connections with the 4 major forces? If that was the case, then things were really troublesome. Long Ao knew very well that although the million corpse slaves were very powerful, they were not a match for a heavenly god martial artist. Just his aura alone was enough to suppress the million corpse slaves. This was the terror of a heavenly god martial artist. It was because of this that Long Ao's expression was extremely ugly, because until now, no one knew the identity of the person in front of him. Looking at the shocked expressions on the 4 titled great emperors, they also did not know the identity of this person. Long Ao could be considered to have some understanding of the 4 major forces. Among the 4 major forces, other than the Nether Mansion, the other 3 major forces, the Imperial City, the 3rd grade Long family, and the Ethereal Palace, did not have a supreme Tao martial artist. Even the Nether Mansion had a supreme Tao martial artist, but he was not a heavenly god martial artist. It was because of this that Long Ao was 100% sure that this person did not belong to any of the 4 major forces. If that was the case, then who was this person? Senior, thank you for your help. In front of a heavenly god expert, even the 4 of them had to be respectful, because a heavenly god expert could easily annihilate the 4 major forces. No one could understand why a heavenly god expert would appear out of nowhere. Calm down. The old man turned around and looked at Long Ao. He sneered and said, Long Ao, I'm Lei Luo, a guardian of the Martial Artists Alliance. Martial Artists Alliance? The old man was from the Martial Artists Alliance? Hearing this, the expressions of the 4 titled martial artists changed completely, especially the Emperor of the Netherworld. The 4 of them knew very well what the Martial Artists Alliance represented. The 4 of them looked at each other and could see the deep shock in each other's eyes. At the same time, the 4 of them were also very curious. Because the Martial Artists Alliance was high and mighty, the 4 major forces did not even know of the Martial Artists Alliance. Why would the Martial Artists Alliance send an heavenly god martial artist to help the 4 major forces? What did this mean? Could it be that Long Ao had offended the Martial Artists Alliance? If that was the case, then Long Ao was dead meat. Thinking of this, the 4 titled great emperors were extremely surprised. Senior, may I ask what the Martial Artists Alliance is? Puffed, puffed, puffed. Hearing Long Ao's words, everyone laughed. However, Lei Luo's expression turned cold instantly. He never thought that there would be someone in this world who dared to ignore the Martial Artists Alliance. Long Ao, you are really arrogant to the extreme. You don't even put the Martial Artists Alliance in your eyes. Shrugging innocently, Long Ao said with an innocent expression, Senior, to tell you the truth, I really don't know what the Martial Artists Alliance is. Looking at the innocent face of Long Ao, everyone stopped laughing, because they all thought of the same thing at the same time, and that was Long Ao's background. As everyone knew, Long Ao was just a small piece of trash in Scarlet Fire Town. Even if he rose up and created the Dragon Sect, it was only in a few short years. With Longao's previous identity, it was not strange that he did not know about the Martial Artists Alliance. If the four titled Great Emperors could think of this, so could Lei Luo. The four of them felt their hearts skip a beat. How could they give up such a rare opportunity so easily? Shinhe immediately said, Senior Lei, Longao obviously knows about the Martial Artists Alliance, but he doesn't put the Martial Artists Alliance in his eyes. He is simply courting death. Brother Shun is right. The entire continent knows about the strength of the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao doesn't know about it. Regardless of whether others believe it or not, I believe it. Senior Lei Luo, Longao's arrogance is obvious to all. If such a person continues to live, he will simply bring disaster to the world. Therefore, the four of us would like to ask Senior to kill this person. Longao did not say a word from beginning to end, because he really did not know what the Martial Artists Alliance was. However, Longao was not a fool. Of course, he could tell from the four's respectful attitude that the Martial Artists Alliance behind Lei Luo was not simple. At the very least, it was above the four great forces. Not to mention other things, just the fact that the Martial Artists Alliance had an enlightened realm martial artist, and he was only a protector, was enough to show what kind of existence the Martial Artists Alliance was. Lei Luo waved his hand and stopped the four who were about to continue speaking. After coughing twice, Lei Luo said, I believe what you said. It's okay if you don't know about the Martial Artists Alliance. I can tell you now that the Martial Artists Alliance is going to interfere in this matter. Why? Longao could not figure it out. Even if the Martial Artists Alliance was powerful, they could not casually interfere in the grudge between him and the four great forces. If so, why did the Martial Artists Alliance not interfere in the first place? Seeing that he had already gained the upper hand, they decided to interfere. Wasn't it obvious that they wanted to deal with him? Senior Lei Luo, although I don't know about the Martial Artists Alliance, I can almost imagine the strength of the Martial Artists Alliance. However, even so, the grudge between me and them does not seem to have anything to do with the Martial Artists Alliance. In that case, may I ask Senior Lei Luo, what right does the Martial Artists Alliance have to interfere in our affairs? Lei Luo's complexion didn't look too good because Longao's tone was very arrogant. However, he could imagine that Longao was young and full of vigor. A person with such a strong innate talent who rose to power in just a few years, if he wasn't arrogant, then it would be strange. Longao, do you know the meaning of the Martial Artists Alliance? He shook his head. He was not a fortune teller. How could he know the meaning of the Martial Artists Alliance? Longao even suspected that water had entered Lei Luo's brain. Since he did not know about the Martial Artists Alliance, how could he know the meaning of the Martial Artists Alliance? It was really a pain in the ass. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Lei Luo took a deep breath and said, Shun He, tell him the meaning of the Martial Artists Alliance. Chapter 744. Shun He was reluctant, but since Lei Luo had asked, he could only agree. In the following time, Shun He told him everything that had happened in the Martial Art Alliance. After listening, Longao finally knew what the Martial Artists Alliance was. It turned out that the Martial Artists Alliance was the most powerful force in the world, above the four great forces. The Martial Artists Alliance, the Long family, and the Heaven and Earth sect were all super forces. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't care about anything. The Martial Artists Alliance was an alliance of all the martial artists in the world. As long as you didn't join any other forces, you would be included in the Martial Artists Alliance, regardless of whether you were willing to join or not. All the martial artists were angry about the Martial Artists Alliance's tyranny, but they didn't dare to say anything. However, super forces like the Heaven and Earth sect, the Wanshou sect, and the Long family didn't seem to be dissatisfied with what the Martial Artists Alliance did. In other words, as long as the Martial Artists Alliance didn't include the martial artists of these super forces in the Martial Artists Alliance, no other forces would care about it. According to the rules of the Martial Artists Alliance, no matter who it was, if the Martial Artists Alliance wanted to interfere, everyone would just have to obey. Tyrannical. This was the tyrannical way of the Martial Artists Alliance. So what if everyone was dissatisfied? The Martial Artists Alliance was so powerful that they could casually send out a divine realm martial artist. This was enough for the martial artists' alliance to be arrogant and tyrannical. After hearing all this, Longao could be considered to be fiercely shocked. Would the martial artists' alliance stand on his side, or the four great forces' side? Longao wasn't a fool. Once the martial artists' alliance stood on the four great forces' side, he would have no hope. Even if the Dragon Sect had thousands of supreme Tao martial artists in the future, they still wouldn't be able to compete with the martial artists' alliance. First, the martial artists' alliance, including all the martial artists, had a solid foundation and strength. There was no need to guess. Secondly, the martial artists' alliance could easily send an enlightened martial artist. As for the Dragon Sect, even if they had more than 1,000 divine path martial artists, they only had one enlightened martial artist, their ancestor. Therefore, the martial artists' alliance was a tiger that could not be touched. Longao didn't say anything, because he still didn't know which side the martial artists' alliance was on. Longao, the martial artists' alliance already knows everything about you. Although you are a disciple of the Long family, you no longer belong to the Long family after you created the Dragon Sect. Instead, you have automatically joined the martial artists' alliance. My grass. After hearing Lei Luo's words, Longao cursed in his heart. He had seen shameless and overbearing people before, but he had never seen someone so shameless and overbearing. When did he join the martial artists' alliance? Why didn't he know about it? However, since things had already come to this point, Longao did not agree or refuse. This was because he knew that once he refused, there was no doubt that the martial arts alliance would definitely side with the four major forces and choose to deal with him. If that was really the case, he would be completely passive. Longao, you and the four forces belong to the martial artists alliance. Therefore, the martial artists alliance can't just watch you kill each other. However, the grudge between you two can't be resolved so easily. Nonsense. This time, not only Longao, but the other four also started to despise Lei Luo. However, due to Lei Luo's strength, they didn't dare to say anything. Senior Lei Luo, how should we resolve the grudge between us? Since the martial artists alliance had already stepped in, the four titled great emperors wouldn't be so stupid as to provoke the martial artists alliance. Although the four forces were the overlords of the 9 prefectures, they were nothing compared to the martial artists alliance. Lei Luo looked at Longao and asked, Longao, now that the martial artists alliance has stepped in, are you willing to accept? I want to hear it first. Longao wasn't a fool. If the martial artists alliance sided with the four forces, wouldn't he be in deep trouble? The old fox Lei Luo knew what Longao meant. He nodded and said, Longao, the martial artists alliance has carefully studied the grudge between you two. Other than resolving the grudge between you two, they are also giving you an opportunity. Longao didn't know about the opportunity given by the martial artists alliance, but the other four were looking forward to it. This opportunity is very simple. I believe you have heard of the martial artists alliance's purgatory space. Purgatory space. Hearing Lei Luo's words, the four were extremely excited. They never thought that the martial artists alliance would open the purgatory space for them to enter. If that was the case, the martial artists alliance's opportunity was too great. After coughing twice, Longao suddenly asked, Senior, I want to ask, what is this purgatory space? Looking at Longao's innocent face, everyone was defeated, especially Lei Luo. He didn't even bother to speak. Lei Luo waved his hand, and he continued to explain the purgatory space. The purgatory space was a trump card of the martial artists alliance. It was of great help to warriors below the Supreme Tao stage. According to legend, as long as a warrior who hadn't broken through the Supreme Tao stage entered the purgatory space to practice, he could break through 1 or even 2 levels without a problem. Some powerful warriors could break through 3 levels directly. It wasn't hard to imagine how awesome the martial artists alliance's purgatory space was. Longao, on behalf of the martial artists alliance, I officially inform you now. Whether it was Longao or the other four, they all listen with anticipation. The grudges between you will be settled in the purgatory space. For the sake of fairness, each of the 5 families will send 100 people into the purgatory space. Whether you live or die is up to fate. As long as you leave the purgatory space, no matter who it is, you can't continue to fight. Do you understand? Speaking of this, Lei Luo said with dissatisfaction, the Jiuzhou continent is in a mess because of the 5 families. If this continues, it will harm others without benefiting ourselves. He completely ignored Lei Luo's complaints. It was a surprise to be able to enter the purgatory space. Moreover, Lei Luo had just said that the 5 families could send 100 people into the purgatory space. In other words, they would have 500 people in the purgatory space. Killing 100 people from the dragon sect would be a piece of cake. Without the help of the corpse demon army, Longao was not even dogfart. The 4 forces were afraid of the corpse slave army, not Longao. According to Lei Luo, if the 5 families could only send 100 people, then the corpse slave army behind Longao would definitely not be able to enter. Longao, you can't bring these people into the purgatory space. However, you can bring 99 people in. I'll give you a month. After a month, follow me to the purgatory space. When you enter the purgatory space, remember, all grudges must be settled in the purgatory space. Anyone who comes out to cause trouble will be killed without mercy. Chapter 745. Since Lei Luo had said so, the 4 of them and Longao had no choice but to accept it. No matter what, the Martial Artists Alliance's strength was there for all to see. Senior Lei Luo, I will not bring the corpse slave army into the purgatory space. Furthermore, I will enter the purgatory space alone. I will not bring anyone. Hearing Longao's words, everyone was shocked, especially the 4 of them. They couldn't figure out if Longao was out of his mind. Why did he want to enter the purgatory space alone? Lei Luo had already said that the 5 families could each send 100 people. Even if the dragon sect sent 100 people, they would be at a disadvantage, let alone going alone. Lei Luo was also curious. He asked, Longao, you really don't plan to bring anyone into the purgatory space? If Longao entered alone, then once the 4 major forces joined forces, 400 experts would join forces to deal with Longao alone. It was obvious what the result would be. Longao nodded and said firmly, I have already decided. I only hope that Lei Luo can open the purgatory space's passageway as soon as possible. I hope that the grudge between us can be settled as soon as possible. Looking at Longao before them, the 4 great titled Great Emperors were simply excited to the extreme. Even if Longao brought 99 people into the purgatory space, they wouldn't be afraid, as long as he didn't bring the corpse slave army. Before Lei Luo could say anything, Shunhe said immediately, as if he was afraid that Longao would go back on his words. Senior Lei, since Longao said so, why don't we start now? After thinking for a while, Lei Luo nodded. Although he felt that this was unfair, Longao asked for it himself. Even if he was killed, he deserved it. Lei Luo actually didn't like Longao very much. Although he didn't like him, Lei Luo still admired Longao. To be able to grow to such an extent in a few short years, Longao was considered very impressive. After thinking for a while, in the end, Lei Luo nodded and said, in that case, I will give you a day. Tomorrow morning, follow me to the purgatory space's passageway. Lei Luo's figure disappeared. Longyang snorted and said coldly, Longao, don't think that you are invincible. This time, I will let you know what regret is after we enter the purgatory space. Brother Long, there's no need to speak so much nonsense. Wait until we enter the purgatory space. I'd like to see if he'll still be so arrogant. He coldly looked at the 4 people in front of him and did not say a word. This was because things were done, not said. Looking at the disappearing figure, the 4 of them finally heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the Martial Artists Alliance had acted in time. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Just thinking about it, once Longao's million-corpse demon army went all out, even if it couldn't annihilate the 4 major forces, it would probably cause great damage to the 4 major forces. What do you think? Of course, the other 3 understood the meaning of Long Yang's words clearly. It was impossible for the Martial Artists Alliance to not have any ulterior motives for suddenly intervening. Because of this, the 4 of them began to ponder, thinking about the Martial Artists Alliance's intention for intervening in the feud between them and Longao. It's hard for us to figure out the Martial Artists Alliance's intention. but I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling in my heart. Do you think that the Martial Artists Alliance's sudden intervention this time is because they want to enter the spirit realm of the Nine States? Hearing this, Longao, Wei Ling, and Shunhe's expressions changed again. This was definitely possible. The four of them knew very well that if the Martial Artists Alliance really wanted to enter the spirit realm of the Nine States, then without a doubt, with the strength of the Martial Artists Alliance, the four major forces would have no chance at all. They would definitely be completely devoured by the Martial Artists Alliance, without a trace of a chance. Although the Martial Artists Alliance was very domineering and forced martial artists and some sects to join, the Martial Artists Alliance was not too ruthless. For example, the Nine States Alliance. Although the four major forces were the Martial Artists Alliance in name, in a real sense, under normal circumstances, the Martial Artists Alliance would not intervene in the affairs of the spirit realm of the Nine States. Because of this, for so many years, no matter how the four major forces fought openly and covertly, even if the war was to the extreme, the Martial Artists Alliance would not intervene. If that was the case, why would the Martial Artists Alliance intervene this time? The four of them could not figure it out. The Long family, Ethereal Palace, and Nether Mansion left quickly because they only had one night. Tomorrow, they would leave for the Purgatory Passage, and in the following time, they had to choose the most suitable person as soon as possible to enter the Purgatory space. In just a few minutes, Longao and the three major forces had all left. Shunhe's expression was very ugly because the Imperial City had suffered the greatest loss in this war. As long as the other three forces did not suffer any losses, even if they could kill Longao in the Purgatory space this time, the Imperial City would still have to face the other three forces. Not only will Longao die, but all of you will also die. After leaving the Imperial City, Longao sent the millions of corpse slaves into the Dragon Seal space. Can't bring the corpse slave army into the Purgatory space? Longao sneered in his heart. Although Lei Luo had already said that he could not bring the corpse slave army into the Purgatory space, he had his own way. Longao was very confident that as long as he put the million corpse slave army into the Dragon Seal space, even if Lei Luo personally checked, he would not be able to find out his secret. This time, the attack on the Imperial City was about to succeed. However, the Martial Arts Alliance suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Although Lei Luo was ready to open the Purgatory space and let them enter, Longao was not happy or excited at all. The reason was very simple. With the strength and status of the Martial Artists Alliance, why would they suddenly intervene in the feud between him and the four major forces? He would not believe that the Martial Artists Alliance did not have a purpose. If that was the case, what was the Martial Artists Alliance's purpose? For some reason, Longao had a feeling that the Martial Artists Alliance's sudden intervention this time was not as simple as it seemed. No matter how he thought about it, he still could not figure it out. Because of this, Longao did not continue to dwell on this question. He knew that the upcoming trip to the Purgatory space would be very dangerous. Other than having to deal with the constant attacks from the four major forces, he also had to deal with the dangers of the Purgatory space itself. Longao did not leave the Imperial City too far because he would enter the Purgatory space tomorrow. On the peak of a barren mountain, not too far from the Imperial City, Longao stood alone on the peak of the mountain, thinking about the Martial Artists Alliance in his mind. The Martial Artists Alliance was a super existence on the same level as the Long family. It was his first time coming into contact with such a superpower. It would be a lie to say that he was not worried. Chapter 746. The reason why Longao entered the Purgatory space alone was simple. He didn't want to implicate the sect. No matter what, the four forces had more than 500 people in the Purgatory space. If he chose to fight them head-on, it wouldn't do him or the sect any good. Stars dotted the night sky. Only the croaking of frogs could be heard in the silent night. Longao was still standing at the peak of the mountain. He hadn't moved a single step. Longao, who was comprehending the art of divination, suddenly had an epiphany. It was like a ray of light in the dark night. The four forces would be destroyed? Who would it be? The art of divination. Longao was pleasantly surprised. After such a long time of comprehension, he had reached the entry level. Although he had a vague epiphany, Longao was still overjoyed. He just realized that the four forces would be destroyed in the future. As for who it would be, he couldn't figure it out. Martial Artists Alliance? Or himself? Because he couldn't figure out what would happen next, Longao wasn't sure. If the Martial Artists Alliance destroyed the four forces, he would be in big trouble. No one knew why the Martial Artists Alliance suddenly intervened. However, Longao knew that the Martial Artists Alliance's intervention wasn't as simple as he thought. In other words, he believed that the Martial Artists Alliance wanted to enter the spirit realm of the 9 states. If the Martial Artists Alliance really wanted to enter the spirit realm of the 9 states, it wouldn't do him any good. Longao knew the strength of the Martial Artists Alliance. The four forces couldn't be compared to the four forces. The Dragon Sect had more than 1,000 Supreme Tao warriors. It would be easy for them to destroy the four forces. However, it was far from enough to deal with the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao didn't continue to think about the Martial Artists Alliance and the four forces. Since he had figured out that the four forces would be destroyed in the future, he was relieved. There were only 2 forces that he was afraid of now. The first was the Martial Artists Alliance, and the second was the force behind the Serene Hell Mansion. The next day, outside the Imperial City, the 400 people from the 4 major forces had gathered. As for the Dragon Sect, Longao was alone. Longao really went to the purgatory space alone. Seeing this, everyone was pleasantly surprised. The 4 great factions had reached an agreement. No matter what happened, they had to kill Longao in the purgatory space to prevent future troubles. Longao, who had just arrived, saw Long Chun at first glance. It seemed like the purgatory space that Lei Luo had mentioned was a good place. Otherwise, the 4 major forces wouldn't have sent their most talented and promising disciples here. It was precisely because of this that Longao was looking forward to the purgatory space. When Longao saw Long Chun also saw Longao. Long Chun signaled with his eyes, and Longao nodded inwardly. Among the 4 major powers, Longao only had one friend, and he only acknowledged one friend. That was Long Chun of the Long family. Cough, cough, cough. Seeing that everyone had gathered, Lei Luo suddenly said, I contacted the Martial Artists Alliance last night and received an order. After entering the purgatory space, all of you have 2 choices. 2 choices? Everyone was curious about Lei Luo's words. They didn't know what he meant. No matter what, the 4 major forces had only heard of the Martial Artists Alliance's purgatory space. As for what was in the purgatory space, none of them knew. As for Longao, he didn't even know. No one spoke. They all listened quietly. The first choice is to enter the purgatory space. You can cultivate in there and deal with all the dangers. In this way, as long as you can come out alive, you will have a breakthrough in your cultivation. It was a good choice. Many people felt that it was a good choice, but no one said anything. Lei Luo had just said that there were 2 choices. If that was the case, what was the second choice? As for the second choice, you can enter the purgatory space and take the 10 levels of purgatory test. As long as you pass, not only will your cultivation increase greatly, but you will also be rewarded by the Martial Artists Alliance. It will be quite beneficial for you. As for the choice, you can tell me later. Let's go. Lei Luo led everyone to the purgatory space. Along the way, everyone was thinking about what to choose. Should they cultivate quietly or choose the 10 levels of purgatory? Although Lei Luo didn't say it, everyone knew that the second choice was definitely more dangerous than the first. Longao, you are a little too reckless. What do you mean? Longao was curious. He didn't know what Long Chen meant. Seeing Long Chen and Longao walking together, everyone looked at the Long family. Long Yang, Long Maoan, and Long Yan's faces were ugly. However, there was nothing they could do. Long Chen's status was different now. Even Long Yang had to give in to Long Chen. Not only was Long Chen a dragon martial artist, but he had also awakened his bloodline. It was rare for a rank 3 Long family to have such a person. In other words, Long Chun was the hope of the Long family. Longao, you brought an army of millions of corpse slaves to attack the Imperial City. It made the 4 major forces think that you want to dominate the 9 states. You have to know that the Martial Artists Alliance alone wouldn't agree to this, let alone the four major forces. I didn't know about the Martial Artists Alliance's existence before. Long Chun shrugged helplessly. Of course, Long Chun knew about Long Ao's background. Because of this, it was reasonable that Long Ao didn't know about the Martial Artists Alliance. Long Ao, for so many years, the four major forces didn't dare to determine the winner because they were afraid that the Martial Artists Alliance would interfere. Now, you have seriously threatened the interests of the Martial Artists Alliance. Although I don't know why the Martial Artists Alliance didn't do anything to you, I still want to advise you to be careful. Before Long Ao could speak, Long Chen continued, especially in the purgatory space. You have to be careful not only of the four major forces, but also of the Martial Artists Alliance. How could Long Ao not know about Long Chen's worries? Long Chun, the enmity between me and the Long family is unavoidable. However, I can promise you that no matter what happens in the future, I will not destroy the Long family. Long Ao's meaning was very clear. Under normal circumstances, with the enmity between Long Ao and the level 3 Long family, he would definitely destroy the Long family. However, in the end, Long Ao thought it through. No matter what, Long Chan was his friend. As the saying goes, even if you don't look at the monk, you still have to look at the Buddha. If he really destroyed the Long family, how would he face Long Chun? Long Ao's state of mind was slowly changing. This was a good thing for Long Ao. Otherwise, if Long Ao continued to kill, the blood pool would take advantage of the situation and the consequences would be unimaginable. Long Chun was a little touched, but he didn't say anything. He only nodded. Everything was in silence. This was friendship. Chapter 747. Along the way, no one spoke. Everyone was looking forward to entering the purgatory space. One day later, in a desolate valley in the southernmost part of the spirit region of the 9 prefectures. Stepping into the valley, Lei Luo said proudly, "This is the passageway to the purgatory space. I will open the passageway later. You can start choosing now." Without exception, everyone, including Long Ao, chose to enter the 10 levels of purgatory. No one was a fool. Although the 10 levels of purgatory were dangerous, they only had one chance. If they missed it, who knew when they would get another chance to enter the purgatory space? Because of this, the 4 major forces unanimously decided to enter the 10 levels of purgatory no matter what. Lei Luo wasn't surprised at all. He seemed to have guessed that everyone would choose the 10 levels of purgatory. Satisfied, Lei Luo nodded and said, "Since you have chosen the 10 levels of purgatory, you can enter the purgatory space now." No one could wait any longer. As soon as Lei Luo opened the passageway to the purgatory space, the 4 major forces swarmed in one after another. In a short while, almost everyone had entered. Long Ao, be careful. You too. Long Chen nodded. Long Ao was the last person to enter the purgatory space. As Long Chen's friend, he was very worried about Long Ao's safety. No matter what, other than dealing with the dangers of the purgatory space, Long Ao also had to deal with the people from the 4 major forces at all times. This time, the 4 major forces had selected the best of the best. Even the 4 titled Great Emperors had all come. One could imagine how important the purgatory space was to the 4 major forces. Only Long Ao was left. Just as he was about to enter, Lei Luo suddenly said, "Long Ao, wait a moment." Long Ao was very curious. He didn't know why Lei Luo had stopped him. However, he didn't want to fall out with the Martial Artists Alliance. He could only stop and ask, "What's the matter, Senior Lei?" "Long Ao, I want to ask you something. Did you create the Dragon Sect because you want to break away from your Long family?" He didn't know what Lei Luo meant, but since things had come to this point, he didn't hide anything. He nodded and said, "That's right. I've never admitted that I'm a disciple of the Long family. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future." "All right, I hope you remember what you said today. Since you are no longer a disciple of the Long family, then you and your Dragon Sect will be affiliated with the Martial Artists Alliance from now on. What do you think?" He had to admit that the Martial Artists Alliance was very domineering. Long Ao was not a fool. He knew very well that if he did not agree to become a subsidiary of the Martial Artists Alliance, There was no doubt that the Martial Artists Alliance would deal with him and his sect without hesitation. Longao did not act rashly. With his and his sect's current strength, they were still no match for the Martial Artists Alliance. If he refused rashly, only death would await him. Because of this, Longao nodded and said, "I'm willing." Lei Luo nodded with satisfaction when he heard the words, "I'm willing." He said, "Longao, the Martial Artists Alliance has intervened in the feud between you and the four superpowers. The Jiuzhou continent has been peaceful for so many years. The Martial Artists Alliance doesn't want anyone to make the Jiuzhou continent a mess. Do you understand?" Longao didn't say anything. He just stood there and listened quietly. "Longao, if you can pass the test of the 10 levels of purgatory in the purgatory space this time, then from now on, the feud between you and the four superpowers will be written off. If you continue to fight, the Martial Artists Alliance will kill you directly. You must bear this in mind." What did this mean? Longao could clearly feel that Lei Luo didn't have a good impression of him. If so, why did Lei Luo remind him? "Senior Lei, according to what you said, the Martial Artists Alliance won't intervene when we enter the purgatory space, no matter if we live or die, right?" "That's right. As long as you enter the purgatory space, the Martial Artists Alliance won't intervene in the feud between you and the four superpowers, no matter if you live or die." Lei Luo's words were very clear. Longao didn't continue speaking. He took a step forward and disappeared into the purgatory space. Looking at the disappearing figure, Lei Luo's face instantly darkened. Murderous aura surged from his body. He said to himself, "Arrogant brat, wait until you can leave the purgatory space alive." In Lei Luo's eyes, Longao would definitely die if he entered the purgatory space. Even if Longao was a great Emperor Realm warrior, he would still have a slim chance of survival. Moreover, Longao was only a Saint King. The purgatory space was the Martial Artists Alliance's holy land for cultivation. At the same time, it was also the forbidden area of the Martial Artists Alliance. Normally, no one was allowed to enter the purgatory space without permission. Even the disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance couldn't enter casually. Because of this, the purgatory space became a holy land for cultivation. It was a place that every martial artist dreamed of entering. However, the Martial Artists Alliance was very good at winning people's hearts. As long as the disciples of the superpowers affiliated to the Martial Artists Alliance, they would have the opportunity to enter the purgatory space to cultivate. Just like this time. In order to win over the four superpowers, the Martial Artists Alliance didn't hesitate to give up 400 disciples, including Longao. In the purgatory space, the entire space was boundless. Everywhere was gray and gloomy. It gave people a very oppressive feeling. It was as if there was a huge rock weighing 10,000 kilograms pressing down on you. The moment Longao stepped into the purgatory space, he didn't hesitate at all. He directly used space teleportation. After 10 consecutive space teleportations, he disappeared without a trace. The four superpowers didn't even have time to react before they realized that Longao had disappeared. Everyone laughed. No one chased after him. After all, there was still a lot of time. They weren't in a hurry to deal with Longao. To the four superpowers, entering the purgatory space was more important than anything else. Moreover, they had chosen to enter the 10 levels of purgatory. If they were careless, they would be doomed eternally. According to Lei Luo, as long as they entered the purgatory space, they could cultivate for 10 days. After 10 days, they would automatically enter the 10 levels of purgatory. At that time, it would be a matter of life and death. 10 days. In other words, they only had 10 days to deal with Longao. After entering the 10 levels of purgatory, not to mention killing Longao, they wouldn't even be able to take care of themselves. Because of this, the four superpowers joined hands and searched the north, south, east, west, and north. Although the purgatory space was boundless, the 10 levels of purgatory were about to open. They believed that Longao wouldn't be too far away. Because of this, the four superpowers seemed very confident. Chapter 748. In the purgatory space, Longao looked around and found that it was a gray area. It was a good place to cultivate. It was worthy of being the cultivation holy land of the Martial Artists Alliance. Without any hesitation, Longao started to cultivate with the help of the purgatory space. Longao first cultivated the 5 elements heaven-swallowing technique. As soon as he stepped into the purgatory space, Longao found that the airflow in the purgatory space was very suitable for the 5 elements heaven-swallowing technique. Strictly speaking, the airflow in the purgatory space was very suitable for the wood element art of the 5 elements heaven-swallowing technique. Such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, how could Longao easily choose to give up? In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Just as Longao was cultivating the wood element art, he suddenly found that there were auras approaching him. Had his whereabouts been discovered by the 4 great forces? Longao knew very well that the 10 levels of purgatory would open in 7 days. During this time, the 4 great forces would not let him go. Before entering, Lei Luo had made it very clear. No matter what the grudges between him and the 4 great forces were, they had to be settled once and for all in the purgatory space. In other words, no matter who lived or died this time, once they left the purgatory space, the grudges would be written off. Because of this, the 4 great forces would definitely use this opportunity to eliminate him and prevent future troubles. He dared not be careless. Longao was not afraid of the 4 great forces, but he knew that with his current strength, it was impossible for him to fight against the 4 great forces alone. Therefore, this battle could only be won with wisdom and not strength. Longao got up and left quickly. As expected, the moment he left, the team from Imperial City arrived. He had brought a very powerful warrior into the purgatory space. Although his strength was not great, he could chase after Longao based on the aura that Longao had left behind. It was precisely because of this that the Imperial City was the first to find Longao's traces among the 4 major forces. In order to seize the opportunity to enter the purgatory space, besides Duan Kai and Duan He, almost all of the Imperial City's outstanding disciples, protectors, and elders had been brought here. Opportunities and dangers coexisted. Once they left the purgatory space, they would be able to grow rapidly, which was definitely a good thing for the Imperial City. He knew very well that the purgatory space had both opportunities and dangers. Out of 100 people, as long as a third of them could leave, then the Imperial City would definitely be able to reach a higher level in the future. Once 90% of them were lost, then it would be the greatest loss to the Imperial City. It might not be able to recover even in 100 years. This time, only victory was allowed. Is Longao here? Patriarch, Longao is indeed here. However, he sensed our auras and fled. However, I am confident that I will be able to find him within 2 hours. Hearing this, He was very satisfied. He thought to himself, Longao, let's see where you can hide this time. Including He, there were more than 100 people from the Imperial City who had entered the purgatory space. One titled Great Emperor, 10 Great Emperors, 20 Saint Emperors, 30 Saint Venerables, and 39 Saint Emperors. This powerful force represented 98% of the Imperial City's strength. If He and the others were to die in the purgatory space, then it would mean that the Imperial City was completely finished. Lei Luo's sudden appearance was nominally a chance for the 4 major forces to enter the Martial Artists Alliance's sacred cultivation ground, the purgatory space. In this way, the 4 major forces should be extremely grateful to Lei Luo and the Martial Artists Alliance. However, the 4 major forces weren't fools. Although the purgatory space was the Martial Artists Alliance's sacred cultivation ground, it was a place that every martial artist dreamed of cultivating. However, if they were to bring all the experts into the purgatory space and something were to happen, how would the 4 major forces deal with it? According to the original plan of the 4 major forces, they would only bring ordinary experts into the purgatory space. Even if there were some losses, it wouldn't be a disaster for the 4 major forces. It would take them a few decades to recover. However, just as the 4 major forces were about to make a decision, God Lei Luo of the Martial Artists Alliance suddenly arrived and ordered the 4 major forces to bring all the experts of the 4 major forces into the purgatory space. The 4 major forces didn't know what the Martial Artists Alliance's intention was. Among the 4 major forces, Only the Serene Hell Mansion didn't follow the Martial Artists Alliance's order. 95% of the members were ordinary disciples. Because of this, the Level 3 Long family and the Ethereal Palace in the Imperial City were very curious. Sensing that something was wrong, the Level 3 Long family immediately objected and was prepared to give up the opportunity to enter the purgatory space. No matter what, the Level 3 Long family didn't belong to the Martial Artists Alliance. They belonged to a Long family. The Martial Artists Alliance didn't have the right to order the Level 3 Long family. If they forced it, they would only offend the Long family. Others might be afraid of the Martial Artists Alliance, but the Long family didn't. However, what made the Level 3 Long family feel incredulous was that for some unknown reason, the Long family sent an order. From now on, the Level 3 Long family was no longer a Long family, but a part of the Martial Artists Alliance. The Level 3 Long family didn't know what was going on. Why did the Long family suddenly abandon them? In desperation, the Level 3 Long family could only follow Lei Luo's order and bring all the experts, including Long Chun, into the purgatory space. Shen He brought all the martial artists and chased in the direction where Long Ao left. Long Ao, who was running wildly, was very curious. No matter where he went, he was always found by Shen He and the others. What was going on? Could it be that Shen He could sense his aura? In the Dragon Seal space, Long Ao went straight to the point and said, Long Fu, no matter where I go, Shen He can always find me. Why is that? Ever since Long Fu helped Long Chang evolve into the ancient divine dragon, Long Ao wouldn't enter the Dragon Seal space to disturb Long Fu unless there was something important. Although Long Ao had guessed something, he had no way to deal with it. Ever since his debut, Long Ao had never encountered such a situation. Even if he wasn't as strong as the other party, it was impossible for him to be chased by the other party. Master, I've already sensed it. If I'm not mistaken, the reason why the other party can keep chasing after you is because he has cultivated some kind of cultivation technique, or some kind of artifact that detects aura. Master, it's very easy to avoid aura tracking. Immediately after, Long Fu absorbed a dragon's aura from the surroundings of the Dragon Seal space and said, Master, this is the energy left behind by the old master. As long as you cover your body with this energy and form a dragon's aura shield, no matter if the other party has cultivated a powerful cultivation technique or some kind of artifact, they won't be able to continue tracking Master's aura. Hearing Long Fu's words, Long Ao was overjoyed. He immediately took the dragon's aura from Long Fu's hand. Chapter 749. Long Ao knew what the dragon energy in his hands meant. The energy left behind by the primordial divine dragon was extremely powerful. One had to know that the primordial divine dragon was one of the most powerful existences in the world, aside from the oracle and the Tao of heaven. Without hesitation, Long Ao turned the energy into an air shield and covered his entire body. As expected, just like what Long Fu had said, Shen He and the rest would not be able to locate him with the energy left behind by the primordial divine dragon. It would be impossible for them to continue searching for him. After completely shaking off Shen He and the others, Long Ao did not leave the matter at that. Long Ao followed them and roughly sensed them. Finally, he knew what level the 100 people sent by the Imperial City were at. One titled Great Emperor, 10 Great Emperors, 20 Sage Emperors, 30 Sage Venerables, and 39 Sage Emperors. This was the foundation of the Imperial City. Long Ao was depressed. Any one of the 100 people sent by the Imperial City was at a higher cultivation level than him. Should he give up so easily? Long Ao was clear that if he could not destroy the Imperial City in the purgatory space, the grudge between him and the Imperial City would be written off after he left the purgatory space. Although Long Ao was unhappy with the Martial Artists Alliance, he would not offend the Martial Artists Alliance just because of a grudge. This was the reason why Long Ao was unwilling to give up. Long Ao did not act rashly. He continued to follow the Imperial City. As long as he had the chance, he would not hesitate to kill as many as he could. After thinking about it, Long Ao decided to attack the 39 Sage Emperors first. The difference in cultivation level between the first 61 martial artists in the illusionary divine stage was huge. Even if the 39 sage emperors wanted to kill one of them, it would not be an easy task. After following them for a day and a night, Longao was not willing to wait any longer. 10 days. There were only 6 days left before he would enter the 10 levels of purgatory. No matter what, he had to kill as many people as he could in this short period of time. Longao knew that it was impossible for him to do it with his true strength. In that case, there was only one way, and that was to use a formation. There was a formation in the Burning Sky formation called the 10,000 Ghost Soul Devouring Formation. It was very powerful. Once it was successfully set up, not to mention sage sovereigns, even holy venerates would not be able to escape. With Longao's array formation skills, it was impossible for him to successfully set up the myriad ghost devouring soul array. If he could set up a small array formation, then it would be useless. However, Longao had a way, and that was to fuse the corpse demon into the formation. This way, not only would it be easier to set it up, its might would also be superior. It was precisely because of this that Longao spent the following time setting up the million soul-devouring corpse slave formation. After a day of setting up, an invisible air shield had appeared in the dusky space. Unless Longao activated the formation, no one would know that there was such a formation here. After settling all this, Longao left. This time, he was prepared to be ruthless. Not only the Imperial City, but the other 3 factions, the Long family, the Ethereal Palace, and the Nether Mansion, would be dealt with as well. Although the million soul-devouring corpse slave formation could not kill cultivators above the Holy Venerate level, it could trap them. Even a titled Great Emperor would not be able to break the formation in a short period of time. If it was the 10,000 Ghost Soul Devouring formation, a Great Emperor would be able to break it easily. However, the million soul devouring corpse slave formation was completely different. Just the million corpse slaves, if killed one by one, could exhaust a Great Emperor to death. Longao was confident that with the million soul-devouring corpse slave formation, he could kill all the sage sovereigns of the 4 factions. As for the rest, he did not even consider it. The 4 factions did not know that Longao had been discovered on purpose. However, the 4 factions did not know that Longao had done it on purpose. Of course, the 4 factions would not let go of this opportunity. Only the Nether Mansion was not fooled. Under normal circumstances, the Nether Mansion would definitely be killed by Longao. However, unlike the other 3 families, the Nether Mansion didn't send 100 people to the purgatory space. Other than the Nether Emperor, the rest were all ordinary disciples. The 3 factions, the Imperial City, the Long family, and the Ethereal Palace, sent out 300 people to chase after Longao. Outside the million soul-devouring corpse slave formation, Longao did not continue to run. Instead, he stopped and waited for the people from the 3 major forces. After a short while, Great Emperor Wei Lin, Great Emperor Shun He, and Great Emperor Long Yang arrived with the martial artists from the 3 major forces. Seeing that Longao had stopped, everyone was curious. They did not know what Longao wanted to do. Since things had come to this point, Longao's death was certain. Longao, seeing that you are not bad, we will give you a chance. Kill yourself. Kill myself? Hearing Long Yang's words, Longao's lips curled into a cold smile. He said with contempt, "Do you really think that you have one?" Hearing this, everyone, including the 3 titled Great Emperors, felt their hearts skip a beat. The more confident Longao was, the more uncertain they were. Could it be that Longao really had something to rely on? Impossible. Longao did not bring a million corpse slaves into the purgatory space. Since that was the case, they could not think of anything else that Longao could rely on. Ha ha ha, Longao, don't try to be mysterious here. You have to know that this is not the outside world. You have nowhere to run. I will give you one last chance. Hand over your secrets and I will let you die quickly. Regarding the secret on Longao's body, everyone really wanted to know. A piece of trash that had been silent for 10 years was actually able to grow to such an extent in just a few years. No one would believe that Longao did not have any secrets. Shun He, Wei Ling, and Long Yang pressed on. As long as Longao did not hand over his secrets, the 3 of them would not hesitate and attack with all their might. In other words, no matter if Longao handed over his secrets or not, only death awaited him. Regarding this point, how could Longao not know? Looking down on the three factions even more, Longao suddenly extended his right middle finger and shook it lightly. He said, "Looks like you are full of confidence. Since that is the case, why are you talking so much nonsense? I will stand here. I want to see who dares to come forward." Wasn't he a little too arrogant? Since he was already at death's door, he still dared to provoke them. He was simply courting death. The three great emperors waved their hands. 10 Saint Emperors shot out from behind the three factions. There were a total of 30 Saint Emperors. In everyone's opinion, it was more than enough to deal with Longao. After all, he was just a small Saint King. The difference between him and a Saint Emperor was simply incomparable. His strong self-confidence had already let everyone in the three major powers see the result. Longao was mercilessly killed without any surprise. Chapter 750. The Nether Mansion didn't participate in the three forces' attempt to kill Longao. Somewhere in the purgatory space, ignoring the ordinary disciples, Netherworld stood quietly as if he was waiting for something. At this moment, a gust of air fluctuated, and then Lei Luo's figure suddenly appeared. Seeing Lei Luo, Netherworld Emperor bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, Lord Lei Luo." Nodding his head, Lei Luo's face was not looking good. He asked, "Is it done?" "Don't worry, Lord Lei Luo. I've sent people to investigate. Almost 98% of the experts in the Imperial City, Long Family, and Ethereal Palace have entered the purgatory space. After this, I'm confident that we can eliminate the three forces in 3 months." "Good." After thinking for a while, Netherworld asked, "Lord Lei Luo, I heard from the old ancestor that the operation will be held in 3 years. Why did it happen earlier?" If Longao was here, he would have guessed who was behind the Nether Mansion. The Martial Artists Alliance. Yes, the mysterious force behind the Nether Mansion was the Martial Artists Alliance. So, the force behind Yuan and Tongling was the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao didn't know about this yet, but it didn't mean that Longao would never know. At least when the purgatory space was over and the Nether Mansion destroyed the other three forces and dominated the spirit realm, Longao would know that the force behind the Nether Mansion was the Martial Artists Alliance. "You don't need to know about this." Netherworld shrugged helplessly. He knew that even the old ancestor Wei Yong didn't have the right to ask about the Martial Artists Alliance's decision, let alone him. In the eyes of the Martial Artists Alliance, there was no difference between a Divine Realm Warrior and a Great Emperor Warrior. After all, a Divine Realm Warrior was just an errand boy. It wasn't hard to imagine how powerful the Martial Artists Alliance was. "Master Lei Luo, now that we have dealt with the Long family, will the Long family be in trouble?" No matter what, a Long family was the most powerful existence in the world. Even the Martial Artists Alliance was wary of a Long family. The Martial Artists Alliance had harmed the Level 3 Long family. If the Long family came looking for trouble, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, Lei Luo was not afraid at all. He smiled and said, "Don't worry. This time, the Long family has already agreed. Otherwise, our Martial Artists Alliance would not easily deal with the third-class Long family." So that was the case. If that was the case, then the Martial Artists Alliance would no longer face any obstacles in unifying the spirit realm of the 9 states. For so many years, the Martial Artists Alliance had been reluctant to take action because they were afraid of the Long family. No matter what, the third-class Long family belonged to the Long family. If they casually took action to destroy the Long family would be the first to object. Afraid of the Long family, the Martial Artists Alliance had endured for so many years. After so many years, the Netherworld Emperor was very curious. He did not know how the Martial Artists Alliance had managed to deal with the Long family all of a sudden. It seemed that the saying was true. In this world, there were no eternal enemies, only eternal benefits. Senior Lei Luo, now that the Long family has been dealt with, what about Longao? The Netherworld Emperor hated Longao to the extreme. He could not wait to kill him immediately. It was also because of Longao's repeated provocations that the Netherworld Mansion had lost face. If Lei Luo had not stopped them, the Netherworld Mansion would have dealt with Longao long ago. Even so, the Netherworld Mansion would not give up easily. They just could not do it because of Lei Luo's face. Longao, what an arrogant bastard. This time, I want to see how he will pass the 10 levels of purgatory. Master Lei Luo, what if Longao successfully passes? Lei Luo does not believe that Longao can pass through the 10 heavenly layers of purgatory smoothly. However, it is better to be safe than sorry. If Longao really passes through the 10 heavenly layers of purgatory, then things will be troublesome. The Martial Artists Alliance had waited for so many years for this opportunity. They would not let anyone mess it up. As the representative of the Martial Artists Alliance, the Netherworld Mansion would be the overlord of the 9-state spiritual realm in the future. Neither the 3 major forces nor the Dragon Sect could stop the Martial Artists Alliance's hegemony. After thinking for a while, Lei Luo said, "Let's put this matter aside for now. If Longao is really lucky and passes the 10 levels of purgatory, I will report this to the Martial Artists Alliance. As for how to deal with Longao, it will be up to the Martial Artists Alliance." Yu Ming was not stupid. Of course, he knew that Lei Luo was just brushing him off. However, due to the Martial Artists Alliance and Lei Luo's strength, he could only keep his anger to himself. Yu Ming, this time, everyone will die in the 10 levels of purgatory. The Netherworld Mansion must take advantage of this time to conquer the 9 states' spiritual realm as quickly as possible. Do you understand? The Martial Artists Alliance's intention was clear. They wanted the Netherworld Mansion to take advantage of the time when the 3 major forces entered the purgatory to destroy the other 3 forces and dominate the 9 states' spiritual realm. The Netherworld Mansion had waited for this opportunity for so many years. Of course, they would not give it up so easily. Longao stood in place, motionless. The 3 major forces, the Imperial City, the Long family, and the Ethereal Palace, a total of 30 Saint Emperors shot toward Longao. In the blink of an eye, they were in front of Longao. Without hesitation, the 30 Saint Emperors attacked with all their strength. Ever since Longao rose to power, he had dealt heavy blows to the 4 major forces. Especially not long ago, he had almost destroyed the Imperial City with his million-strong corpse demon army. If Lei Luo had not appeared in time on behalf of the Martial Artists Alliance, the Imperial City would have suffered heavy losses. For such a long time, no one had been able to kill Longao. In other words, no matter who it was, if they could kill Longao, their name would instantly spread throughout the world. Just as the 30 Saint Emperors were about to touch Longao, a shocking scene suddenly occurred. Because the 30 Saint Emperors suddenly disappeared. Just like that, they disappeared into thin air. No one knew what had happened. Where did they go? Not only the 30 Saint Emperors, even Longao had disappeared without a trace. What had happened? Everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone, including the 3 titled Great Emperors, didn't think that it was Longao's doing. They all thought that it was done by the purgatory space itself. Because of this, everyone's face instantly turned solemn. They didn't know that the purgatory space was so powerful. This was a total of 30 Saint Emperors. They had lost 30 Saint Emperors before even seeing the 10 levels of the purgatory. If this continued, how many people would be left when they left the purgatory? The 3 of you. Weren't you very confident? Since that is the case, why did you stop? Looking at the young man who suddenly appeared in front of them, everyone was dumbfounded again. It was as if they had seen a ghost on a sunny day. Chapter 751. Didn't Longao just disappear? If that was the case, why would Longao suddenly appear? If Longao had already appeared, then what about the others? Shen He, Wei Ling, and Long Yang's faces were gloomy. The 3 of them thought at the same time that it must be Longao's doing. Until now, they still didn't know how Longao did it. Longao, where are our men? Men? Are the 3 of you out of your minds? Why are you asking me for your men? What a joke. They wanted to kill me just now. How would I know where they went? Hearing Longao's words, the 3 of them were gloomy to the extreme. Although they didn't know how Longao did it, the 3 of them were 100% sure that the disappearance of the 30 Sage Emperors was related to Longao. This time, The three of them were extra careful. In the million-corpse slave spirit-devouring array, the 30 sage emperors of the three major forces were trapped in the array, but the 30 of them were still full of confidence. They arrogantly thought that they were trapped in the purgatory space and that it had nothing to do with Longao. Ignorance killed the cat. It was a principle that had never changed. Welcome to my million-corpse slave spirit-devouring array. Looking at Longao who appeared in front of them, everyone's face changed, especially when they heard about the million-corpse slaves army. It could be said that everyone knew about the million-corpse slaves behind Longao. An army of 1,000,000 was enough to threaten the safety of the imperial city, let alone them. However, what the 30 sage emperors couldn't understand was that Lei Luo had set a rule that Longao wasn't allowed to bring his army of 1,000,000 corpse slaves into the purgatory space. At the same time, Longao had also agreed to it. If that was the case, then what was the million-corpse slaves army that Longao spoke of? Longao was bluffing. Thinking of this, everyone laughed mockingly. Their faces were filled with disdain and contempt. Longao, you don't have to be an alarmist here. If you have the million-corpse slaves army, why wouldn't you take it out? That's right, you reckless fool. No matter what happens today, you will definitely die. Everyone looked down on Longao. If 30 Saint Kings worked together, they could easily kill Longao. Since things had already come to this point, Longao didn't say anything because he knew very well that this battle was unavoidable. In the following period of time, Longao started a massacre. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for Longao to take on 30 Saint Kings by himself. After all, the combined might of 30 Saint Kings was extraordinarily powerful. Let alone Longao, even a peak Saint King would not necessarily be able to stop them. However, the current situation was completely different. Could 30 Saint Emperors fight against 1,000,000 corpse slaves and soul devourers? When they saw the appearance of 1,000,000 corpse demons, the 30 sage emperors finally realized that they weren't being tricked at all. In their shock, before they could even react, they were attacked by the 1,000,000 corpse demons. Not only that, but the formation itself also had a soul-devouring effect. It was obvious that the 30 Saint Emperors would not be able to withstand the double attack. The fates of the 30 Saint Emperors had already been decided. Outside the formation, Longao looked at the crowd before him. The weakest among them were Saint Emperors, while the strongest were titled Great Emperors. Even so, not a single one of the 300 people dared to attack him. If this matter were to spread out, who knew if anyone would believe it? Wei Ling, Long Yang, Shun He, the grudge between us will be settled here. The three of them looked indifferent on the surface, but their hearts were extremely heavy because the 30 Saint Emperors had suddenly disappeared. No one knew what had happened and where they had gone. Longao, hand over my subordinates and we can put our grudges aside for now. Otherwise what? Do you want to bite me? Longao didn't place the three of them in his eyes at all. He was confident that no one from the three factions would dare to act rashly. After all, the 30 Saint Emperors had suddenly disappeared. As long as the 30 Saint Emperors didn't appear, the three factions wouldn't dare to act rashly. Longao, without giving Long Yang any chance to speak, Longao suddenly snorted and said, "Are the three of you really stupid or pretending to be stupid?" Not knowing what Longao meant, Shunhe asked, "Longao, speak clearly." This time, the Martial Artists Alliance suddenly interfered in the 9-state spirit domain and forced you to bring all the experts into the purgatory space. Did you really not suspect anything? No suspicion. It was all a lie. The three of them weren't idiots. Of course, they knew that the Martial Artists Alliance wouldn't interfere in the matters of the 9-state spirit domain for no reason. After all, the Martial Artists Alliance hadn't interfered for so many years. I believe that the three of you aren't idiots. Then, I'll get straight to the point. The 9-state spirit domain has a total of 4 factions. The East Royal City, the West Third Rank Long Family, the South Nether Mansion, and the North Ethereal Palace. You can see why the Nether Mansion isn't here. Moreover, the people from the Nether Mansion that entered the purgatory space this time, other than the Netherworld Emperor, seem to be some insignificant disciples. Hearing this, the faces of the three turned even colder. Of course, The three of them knew what had happened to the Nether Mansion. Because of this, the three of them seemed to have guessed something. Could it be that the Nether Mansion had reached some kind of agreement with the Martial Artists Alliance? All right, I believe that the three of you have already guessed that the Martial Artists Alliance's intention is very simple. They want to take advantage of this opportunity to catch all of us in one fell swoop. Then, the Nether Mansion will become their puppet and dominate the 9-state spirit domain. The three of them didn't want to believe this at all. However, the three of them knew that this was almost certain. Among the 4 factions of the 9-state spirit domain, the Martial Artists Alliance had chosen the Nether Mansion in the end, not the three of them. Before Longao could speak, Longao said first, "Longao, you don't need to waste time with me. You should know that if the Long family hadn't abandoned you, you wouldn't have entered the purgatory space." Staring at Longao in front of him, Longao could only sigh in the end. Because the truth was right in front of him, he had no choice but to believe it. There was nothing he could say. If it was just the Nether Mansion alone, the 3 factions wouldn't be afraid at all. However, the problem now was that the Nether Mansion was just a puppet. The real manipulator behind the scenes was the Martial Artists Alliance, a big tiger that even the Long family didn't dare to provoke. With the strength of the 3 factions, how could they be a match for the Martial Artists Alliance? Without a doubt, in the eyes of the Martial Artists Alliance, it would be a piece of cake for them to crush the Imperial City, the Ethereal Palace, and the Long family. Thinking of this, the 3 titled Great Emperors didn't know what to do. They knew that the chances of them being destroyed in the purgatory space were very high. However, there was nothing they could do. After all, the Martial Artists Alliance was powerful. Chapter 752. Longao, cut the crap. What do you mean? What could they do now that things had reached this stage? Were they going to fight against the Martial Artists Alliance? Helplessly shaking his head, Longao sighed and said, "I originally thought that you would not accept your fate. At the very least, you would stand up and resist. This way, even if you failed, you would have no regrets." The three's faces turned green and purple from Longao's words, but they had nothing to say. "But I never thought that the so-called 3 great forces were all trash among trash. Longao, you're courting death. I'm just giving you a kind reminder. The result is already in front of you. Whether you can leave the purgatory space alive or not, the spirit region of the 9 states will no longer belong to you." A cruel smile slowly appeared on his face. Longao continued, "Even if you're lucky enough to leave alive, you'll all be prisoners of the Nether Mansion in the future." Although it was unpleasant to hear, it was the truth. "Since you want your subordinates so much, I'll return them to you." Just as Longao finished speaking, the 30 Saint Emperors who had just disappeared suddenly reappeared. They appeared out of thin air. The 30 Saint Emperors walked back expressionlessly. "Wait, all of you, stop. Shunhe, what's going on?" Wei Ling and Longyang were confused. They didn't know what was wrong with Shunhe. Longao had finally released his 30 subordinates. What was Shunhe doing? Not to mention the 2. Even the others were confused. "Humph, Longao, you can hide it from others, but don't think you can hide it from me." Shunhe stared at the 30 people in front of him and said, "The 30 of them are already dead. They're just corpse slaves now. You have to be careful." 30 corpse slaves? Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They looked at the 30 people in fear, especially Longao, because no one knew how Longao did it. "Ha ha ha, what smart idiots. But you know it too late. Kill." With this order, the people from the 3 major forces suddenly turned around and shot towards the 3 major forces. Each of them was filled with murderous intent, and every move was vicious. It was obvious that they wanted to kill the people from the 3 major forces. At this point, everyone was 100% certain that the 30 Saint Kings had indeed become corpse slaves to be dealt with. It was too terrifying. How did Longao do it? He was actually able to turn 30 vigorous Saint Kings into corpse slaves in just an hour. Shunhe, Wei Ling, and Longyang naturally knew what was going on. The 3 of them had no choice but to kill all 30 corpse slaves. With the strength of a titled Great Emperor, it was more than enough to kill 30 Saint Emperor corpse slaves. However, just like that, The corpse servants had dealt a mental blow to the three of them. No one had thought that Longao would refine 30 Saint Kings into corpse servants, and the three of them had personally dealt with it. Longao, waving his hand, Longao didn't give the three of them any chance to speak. He said, "My time is tight. If you want to fight, then fight. If not, then I'm leaving." If it was a moment ago, the three major forces would have swarmed over. After all, in the eyes of the three major forces, they didn't put Longao in their eyes. He was no different from an ant. But now, the situation had reversed. The 30 Saint Emperors sent by the three major forces had suddenly disappeared. In just an hour, when the 30 Saint Emperors appeared, they had already become corpse slaves. Such a matter was something that even a divine Tao warrior might not be able to do. Because of this, the three major forces didn't dare to act rashly. They were all very afraid of Longao. Who knew how Longao did it? If they continued to attack and Longao refined all of them into corpse slaves, what would they do at that time? It was better to be safe than sorry. The calmer Longao appeared, the more afraid the three major forces were. How could Longao not know what everyone was thinking? He shook his head in disdain and said contemptuously, "Trash, since you don't dare to attack, then I'm sorry. I'll take my leave first. I forgot to tell you that in 5 days, the 10 levels of purgatory will open. I hope you can all survive and see the nether mansion dominating the spirit domain of the 9 states." Looking at Longao's disappearing figure, everyone's face turned ugly. A mere Saint King had scared off almost 300 martial artists. Among them, there were even 3 titled Great Emperors. Was this true? What do you think? Wei Ling and Long Yang clearly understood the meaning of Shan He's words. Long Yang thought for a moment and said, "I can say that Longao's strength is only at the Saint King realm. Any one of us here can kill him. There's no doubt about it." Nonsense. Everyone here knew the answer to this question. After thinking for a moment, Long Yang continued, "It seems that Longao has a secret. Based on my speculation, he must have some kind of powerful divine artifact. If we can get it, it's not impossible for us to rise again in the future." The three of them had already guessed the relationship between the Martial Artists Alliance and the Nether Mansion. Because of this, the three of them had already formed an alliance to deal with the Serene Hades Mansion. However, the three of them knew that with their current strength, they were no match for the Serene Hades Mansion. To be exact, they were no match for the Martial Art Alliance. However, the three of them were looking forward to Longao's mysterious divine artifact. It could create millions of corpse slaves in an instant. If they could get their hands on it and create an army of millions of corpse slaves, they wouldn't have to be afraid of the Martial Artists Alliance, let alone the Nether Mansion. It was only a matter of time before they rose again. Thinking of this, the three of them were very afraid. Although the divine tool on Longao's body is very powerful, it's not a simple matter for us to snatch it from his hands. Tell me, what should we do? It's simple. When we enter the 10 levels of purgatory later, we'll go all out. I don't believe that Longao can fight against 100 people alone. Shaking his head, Shunhe said, "I'm sure that Longao's divine artifact has limited power. If Longao had full confidence in dealing with us, he would have done it just now. So, we still have a chance." Hearing Shanhe's words, Wei Ling and Long Yang nodded in agreement. The Nether Mansion has withdrawn, and the Martial Artists Alliance's goal is clear. Are we still going to enter the 10 levels of purgatory? We have to. We can't let the Martial Artists Alliance see any flaws. Otherwise, it'll be difficult for us to rise again. So, we have to pretend that we don't know anything and try to preserve our strength. Everyone nodded. Almost everyone present was the foundation of the three forces, so the three of them weren't afraid of the secret being leaked. P.S. The outbreak will start on the 15th. Due to some delays, the outbreak will start tomorrow. 10 chapters a day until the end of the month. Chapter 753. Longao didn't leave. He hid in the formation and watched the three forces to see what they would do next. As expected, Longao was almost certain that the three forces wouldn't continue to cause trouble for him. After all, he had turned 30 Saint Emperors into corpse slaves in just an hour. If the three forces still didn't let him go, then they must have lost their minds. Shaking his head helplessly, Longao knew very well that the three of them had already guessed what he had guessed. Because of this, Longao also wanted to see how the three forces would deal with what happened next. After a few days of thinking and observation, Longao was almost certain of one thing, which was the identity of the mysterious sect behind Yu'in and Tongling. Without a doubt, the sect behind Yu'in and Tongling was the Martial Artists Alliance. The reason was simple. The Nether Mansion was backed by the Martial Artists Alliance, and Hades was from the Martial Artists Alliance. As for Hades, he was Yu'in and Tongling master. It wasn't hard to guess. Although he already knew the target, Longao wasn't surprised at all. The Martial Artists Alliance. Although he had guessed that the sect behind Yu'in was very powerful, he never thought that the sect behind Yu'in was the Martial Artists Alliance. In this way, it would be very difficult for him to find Yu'in. Clenching his fists tightly, Longao kept telling himself that no matter what happened, no matter what difficulties he faced, he would go to the Martial Artists Alliance and bring Yu'in back in front of everyone. In the remaining 5 days, Longao and the three forces didn't cause any trouble for each other. Lei Luo and Yu Ming were very troubled by this. They didn't know what the two sides were thinking, because according to the grudges between the two sides, entering the purgatory space was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, especially for the three forces, because after leaving the purgatory space, no matter who won or lost, their grudges would be written off. Since that was the case, why didn't the three forces make a move? Yu Ming was not satisfied. He found Lei Luo and went straight to the point. Lord Lei Luo, I don't know why, but the Imperial City, the Ethereal Palace, and the Long family are not dealing with Longao. If this continues, Lei Luo waved his hand. He understood Yu Ming's intentions very well. The Imperial City, the Misty Palace, and the Long family's intentions are clear. The 10 levels of purgatory is about to begin. Life and death are at stake. I believe that no matter who it is, they will face the 10 levels of purgatory. Do you understand? Even so, Yu Ming was still unwilling to give up. Before Yu Ming could speak, a murderous aura suddenly exploded from Lei Luo's body, scaring Yu Ming into silence. Lei Luo thought coldly in his heart, Longao, if you dare disrespect me, I will make you die in the 10 heavens of purgatory. In the purgatory space. There were 10 tests in the 10 levels of purgatory, from the 1st level to the 10th level. If one could successfully pass the 3rd level of purgatory, one could ask to leave at any time. As for the later tests, no one could force them to rely on themselves. In other words, as long as one entered the 10 levels of purgatory, regardless of whether one was willing to continue or not, they would have to pass the 3rd level of purgatory. Otherwise, they would die in the 10 levels of purgatory. Everyone in the 4 forces had no choice. Regardless of whether they could pass the 4th level of purgatory or not, they had to at least try the 3rd level of purgatory. Among the 4 forces, the Netherworld Mansion was the weakest. Not only that, but the Netherworld Emperor of the Netherworld Mansion had also disappeared. Because of this, Emperor Wei Lin, Emperor Longyang, and Emperor Shan He were even more certain of their guesses. Although they were angry, they could only choose to endure it. After all, the 3 forces were not as strong as the Martial Artists Alliance. They could only suffer in silence. Outside the 10 levels of purgatory, Lei Luo nodded approvingly and said, I also didn't expect that all of you would choose to participate in the 10 heavens of purgatory. That's right. Although it's very dangerous, I can tell you clearly that as long as you can pass through it smoothly, even if it's just the 3rd heavens of purgatory, what you will obtain is far beyond your imagination. Shameless, despicable, inhuman. Everyone cursed and despised him in their hearts. They had seen shameless people before, but they had never seen someone as shameless as him. He was simply lying through his teeth. They had to admit that the purgatory space was indeed a sacred place for cultivation. The 10 levels of purgatory were also the best tests to train warriors. However, the Martial Artists Alliance's goal was not pure at all. It was easy to guess that under normal circumstances, the Martial Artists Alliance would not give them this opportunity. As the forbidden area of the Martial Artists Alliance, the purgatory space was not a place that anyone could enter to cultivate, let alone outsiders. Even the disciples of the Martial Artists Alliance could not enter the purgatory space to cultivate. No one said anything because they did not know what to say. Could they refuse? The wild ambition of the Martial Artists Alliance was obvious. Everyone knew about it. The Martial Artists Alliance's intention was very simple. If the foundation of the three forces entered the purgatory space and failed to pass the test and died in the 10 levels of purgatory, then everyone would be happy and the Martial Artists Alliance would be saved a lot of trouble. At the very least, if most of the people from the three forces could leave the 10 levels of purgatory alive, then it would not matter, because the serene Hades mansion had become the overlord of the 9 states. With the Martial Artists Alliance as their backer, the three forces would not dare to go against the serene Hades mansion even if they were given 10,000 guts. In this way, the three forces could only become the subordinates of the serene Hades mansion. Therefore, no matter what the process was, the result would be the same. I believe you already know the rules of the 10 levels of purgatory. Those who successfully pass the 3rd level of purgatory can choose to quit at any time. Otherwise, once you enter the next level, you must pass it successfully. Otherwise, you cannot leave. No one said anything. Leiluo seemed to feel bored. After all, everyone already knew the rules of the 10 levels of purgatory. It was pointless for him to say it again. The test of the 10 levels of purgatory has officially begun. As soon as Leiluo finished speaking, a terrifying white light shrouded everyone. In the next second, everyone, including Longao and Long Chun, disappeared. Yu Ming, the 10 levels of purgatory have begun. You can leave the purgatory space now. Remember, you must complete the 9 states within a month. Otherwise, you and Wei Yang will be beheaded. Yu Ming was shocked. He was still very afraid of Leiluo. He said in a trembling voice, "Master Leiluo, don't worry. We have already arranged everything. 1 month is more than enough." Leiluo seemed to be very satisfied. He nodded and waved his hand. His meaning was clear. Yu Ming did not dare to stay any longer. He slowly retreated. With Leiluo's help, Yu Ming successfully left the purgatory space. After all, he was not a guardian of the Martial Artists Alliance and was not qualified to leave. P.S. The first chapter has been delivered. There are 9 more chapters. Chapter 754. In the Tianwu continent. In the side hall of the Martial Artists Alliance. There were only 2 people in the side hall. Both of them were high-level guardians of the Martial Artists Alliance. They were none other than Yu Yin's master, Hades, and Wei Yang's master, He Sha. He Sha, didn't you say that the Jiuzhou continent would take place in 3 years? Why did you move ahead of time? Hades was very curious. He didn't know why He Sha wanted to move ahead of time. Although He Sha's position in the Martial Artists Alliance was not the highest, the Martial Artists Alliance had given He Sha full authority over the Jiuzhou continent. That was why He Sha had the right to change the time at will. He Sha was very tall. He was at least 2 meters tall. Like Hades, he was dressed in black. However, his face was not covered. He could be considered a little handsome. He Sha's face was expressionless and cold. Those who knew He Sha were not surprised. That was because He Sha was such a person. Hades, it's not my idea to move ahead of time. It's the idea of the higher-ups. The higher-ups? Hades certainly knew what He Sha was referring to. So that was it. He Sha thought for a while and said, "Hades, you and I have a good relationship in the Martial Artists Alliance. So let's get straight to the point. There's no need to beat around the bush. What do you think?" Hades was very curious. He didn't know what He Sha wanted to say. But as He Sha said, in the Martial Artists Alliance, you must be careful. You never know when you will be harmed. This was the Martial Artists Alliance. There were all kinds of people in there. Just say what you want to say. Okay, I don't need to tell you what Yu Yin means. Hades, if I get her body, I believe I will be able to break through to a higher level in a short time. At that time, I will help you break through to a higher level. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. What do you think? So it was about this matter. If it was anything else, Hades would definitely agree. However, this was her biggest surprise, because Yu Yin was Yu Yin's secret. Not many people in the Martial Artists Alliance knew about it, but it also caused a lot of trouble, because everyone wanted to get you in so that they could break through to a higher level. Hey Sha, I understand what you mean, but I still can't agree to it. Why is that? Hey Sha's expression was very ugly. He said, you accepted Yu In as your disciple because you want to break through to a higher realm. Instead of letting others take advantage of you, why not let me take advantage of you? He sighed deeply. Hades said helplessly, Hey Sha, there's something you don't know. If the higher-ups didn't know about Yu In, it would be fine to give her to you. But the problem now is that the higher-ups already know about Yu Yin's secret. So, the higher-ups have decided to use Yu In to form a marriage alliance with other forces. F***CK. Heisha couldn't help but curse. He was very clear about the consequences if the higher-ups knew about it. If he forcefully got Yu Yin's body, the higher-ups would definitely know about it. At that time, he would only die. Although he wanted to break through, compared with his life, it seemed insignificant. But Heisha was a little unwilling to give up like this. Hades, is there no other way? Hades nodded understandingly and said, I know how you feel. Don't worry. This time I brought such a good gift to the Martial Artists Alliance. If nothing unexpected happens, the Martial Artists Alliance will definitely give me a chance. At that time, I will ask the higher-ups. With you, it shouldn't be a problem. Hearing this, Hades smiled and said gratefully, Thank you very much. Hey Sha, back to the topic. Since the higher-ups have decided to take action in advance, what should the Long family do? Long family will definitely not agree. It doesn't seem worth offending the Long family for Jojo and the Long family. Heisha certainly knew what Hades was worried about. Don't worry about this. The higher-ups have already taken care of the Long family. Otherwise, the action wouldn't have been brought forward 3 years. I also didn't expect the Long family to suddenly give up on the Long family this time. It was very shocking because even Hades didn't expect this. The Martial Artists Alliance had always wanted to dominate the Jojo continent. But because of the third-level Long family in the Jojo continent, the Martial Artists Alliance couldn't take action. After all, the strength of the Long family was there. Even the Martial Artists Alliance had to be wary of them. Because of this, the Martial Artists Alliance was afraid of the Long family and didn't dare to act rashly on the Jojo continent. It didn't matter if this delay was not successful after so many years. Underworld God and Heisha did not continue to dwell on this issue. Both of them had already guessed that the Long clan must have reached some kind of agreement with the Martial Arts Alliance for the Long clan to suddenly give up on the rank 3 Long clan. In this world, there were no eternal friends, and there were no eternal enemies. Hades didn't care about the life and death of the Imperial City, the Ethereal Palace, and the third-level Long family at all. She only worried about Longao and the dragon sect behind Longao. Heisha, after taking care of the Jojo continent this time, how are you going to deal with Longao? Regarding Longao, Black Fiend was not unfamiliar with him. This was because his disciple, Wei Yang, and the Underworld God had both mentioned this person. It was also because of this that the Black Fiend had taken notice of Longao. Hades, I know your intentions. Since you know, then get rid of this man and eliminate all future troubles. Shaking her head, Heisha sighed and said, I can't do that. Why not? Hearing that Heisha wasn't willing to help her get rid of Longao, Hades was completely anxious. This was because entering the purgatory space was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her. No matter what, she had promised Yu In that no matter when and no matter what happened, she couldn't kill Longao. It was because of her promise to Yu In that Hades didn't do it herself. However, Wei Yang and the others were disappointing and couldn't kill Longao. Hades, calm down. The Long family has already intervened. In the end, the Martial Artists Alliance has also agreed. This time, we won't play any tricks when Longao enters the purgatory space. Whether he lives or dies depends on his own ability. Before Hades could speak, Heisha continued, if Longao successfully leaves the purgatory space, he will be summoned by the Long family. If Longao can't leave the purgatory space and dies in the test of the 10 levels of purgatory, then the Long family won't pursue this matter. Hades didn't expect the Long family to intervene in Longao's affairs. This was because Longao was almost dispensable to the entire Long family. Because of this, Hades couldn't figure out why the Long family would intervene in Longao's affairs. Chapter 755. Hey Shah, are you saying that we have no control over Long Ao's life and death when he enters the purgatory space? I have no choice either. Hearing this, Hades's face instantly darkened. Hades originally thought that Long Ao would definitely die in the purgatory space. No matter how he looked at it, the purgatory space was the territory of the Martial Artists Alliance. But what was the result? Even He Sha could not do anything. It seemed that he could not do anything either. Could it be that he had to give up on Long Ao just like that? If it was just Long Ao, Hades would not lower himself to deal with a nobody. But the problem now was that Yuyin had always been reluctant to part with Long Ao. This would not only affect Yu Yin's cultivation, it might even cause trouble in the future. Because of this, Hades was prepared to eliminate the source of the problem. In his opinion, as long as he killed Long Ao, everything would be fine. Hades, calm down. I heard that even if Long Ao can leave the purgatory space alive, he will be summoned by the Long family. What kind of news was this? Hades glared at him. He was extremely helpless. Long Ao created the dragon sect. He has already left the Long family. If you had a Long family, would you agree to this? Hades was not a fool. Of course, he understood what He Sha meant. Hades was delighted. He nodded and said, "You mean that as long as Long Ao is summoned by the Long family, he will definitely die? Unless the Long family is willing to separate Long Ao from the Long Ao will definitely die." No one else knew about the conversation between Hades and He Sha. In the purgatory space, Long Ao and everyone from the 4 major forces had successfully entered the 10 levels of purgatory. The first level of the 10 levels of purgatory was Heaven Incinerating Flames. Raging flames incinerate the heavens. Everyone was enveloped in a white light. In the blink of an eye, everyone had entered a space of flames. If it were an ordinary martial artist, once they stepped into raging flames incinerate the heavens, they would probably be incinerated in an instant. But the weakest martial artist who entered Heaven Incinerating Flames was a Saint King, Long Ao. As for the 3 major forces, Imperial City, Ethereal Palace, and the 3rd level Long family, they were all experts. Needless to say, the 99 people from the House of Nether Mansion were all ordinary disciples of the House. In the eyes of the 3 major forces, the House, the meaning of the first heaven of the purgatory was very simple. Under the raging flames burning the heavens, it was simply enough for 1 day and 1 night. Seemed simple, but it was full of dangers and difficulties. They didn't dare to be the slightest bit careless. In this situation, the grudge between Long Ao and the 4 major forces had temporarily come to an end. Because of the 10 levels of purgatory, life and death could be determined in an instant. No one would look for trouble in such a situation. Long Ao looked left and right. He used the power that Long Fu had given him from the primordial divine dragon to cover his body, forming a layer of chi shield. He had to admit that the power left behind by the primordial divine dragon was very powerful. It could temporarily block the corrosion of the flames. Enduring for a day and a night wasn't easy. In just a few minutes, 50% of the House of Nether Mansion's disciples had been burned to ashes. This was the reason why martial artists were weak. The 99 people that the House of Nether Mansion had sent into the purgatory space were cannon fodder. They had already calculated this. Seeing the disciples of the Serene Hell Mansion being burned alive, the hearts of the spectators kept thumping. At this moment, they finally understood how terrifying the 10th heavenly layer of purgatory was. Even the first heavenly layer of purgatory was terrifying. They had thought that if the heaven incinerating flames were only this strong, then they would be completely confident that they could smoothly pass. But what they hadn't expected was that before they could react, the heaven incinerating flames began to upgrade. The surrounding flame energy instantly increased by 3 levels. In this way, everyone began to panic. Long Ao also discovered that something was wrong. At this time, in everyone's mind, information about the raging flames burning the heavens appeared. If they wanted to pass the heaven incinerating flames, on top of enduring for a day and a night in the first level of purgatory, they also had to capture a fire attribute spirit beast, the so-called Raging Flame Beast. The Raging Flame Beast. Everyone split up, resisting the flames while searching for the so-called Raging Flame Beast.
Master.
Longao, who was searching for the Raging Flame Beast, suddenly heard Long Fu's summon. He was very curious. He didn't know why Long Fu would summon him in this situation. But Longao wasn't a fool. Under normal circumstances, Long Fu wouldn't casually summon him. It seemed that something had happened. With no other choice, Longao could only go to a certain area of the heaven incinerating flames. Seeing that the disciples of the four factions hadn't followed him, he sighed in relief. Even so, Longao didn't dare relax. Because of this, Longao had summoned the 9 Netherworld Tiger Longming to protect him. Next, Longao's soul entered the Dragon Seal space. He got straight to the point and asked, Long Fu, what is it? Long Fu smiled and said, Master, I want to ask, where are you right now? Longao did not hide anything from Long Fu. He recounted the matter of the 10 layers of the purgatory in full detail, especially the raging flames burning the heavens that they were currently in. After listening, Long Fu seemed a little excited and said, Master, I never thought that you would come to this place. I want to ask you for something. Ask? Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was startled. Because for such a long time, Long Fu had never said the word ask. It seemed that this matter wasn't simple. Long Fu, what is it? Tell me. Although Long Fu said the word ask, Longao still didn't immediately agree. Because the more Long Fu acted like this, the more uncertain he felt. He didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. Who knew what Long Fu wanted to ask of him? What if he couldn't do it? Master, the heaven incinerating flames you just spoke of contains a flame crystal. As long as I can obtain this flame crystal, it will greatly benefit the recovery of the Dragon Seal space. Flame crystal? Longao was very curious and asked, Long Fu, do you mean to say that the entire Raging Flame space is supported by this piece of flame spar? Nodding his head, Long Fu naturally knew what Longao wanted to ask. He didn't hide anything and said, the flame crystal might be useless to ordinary people, but it's very useful to the Dragon Seal. It's just that the flame crystal is very rare. Wanting to obtain one is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. If I'm not wrong, this flame crystal should be very big. Chapter 756. Long Fu, where is the flame crystal rock that you mentioned? Longao already understood what Long Fu meant. Since the flame crystal rock was helpful to the Dragon Seal, then even if he had to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, he had to get the flame crystal rock for Long Fu. Longao clearly knew that if the flame crystal rock wasn't important to him, Long Fu wouldn't be so nervous. Master, although raging flames incinerate the heavens is terrifying, it's very helpful to your cultivation. Take advantage of this period of time. You can cultivate first. In the last 6 hours, I will guide you to find the flame crystal rock. Nodding his head, Longao didn't say much and immediately returned to raging flames incinerate the heavens in the Dragon Seal space. Longao didn't waste any time. Just as Long Fu said, although the 10 levels of purgatory was full of danger, it was also the best place to cultivate. Just like the first level of purgatory, raging flames incinerate the heavens, just the fire attribute power alone wasn't something that could be compared to anywhere else. While Longao was cultivating, he also seized the opportunity to comprehend the fire elemental formula. The 5 elements heaven-devouring formula was the metal elemental formula, wood elemental formula, water elemental formula, fire elemental formula, and earth elemental formula. Among the 5 elements elemental formula, the fire elemental formula could be cultivated with the help of raging flames incinerate the heavens. Longao sat quietly and continuously absorbed the fire energy around him. While cultivating the fire elemental formula, Longao was also circulating the 9-cycle technique. Longao knew very clearly that if it was outside, no matter where, he wouldn't be able to comprehend the fire elemental formula. Only in this place, this space that was filled with fire energy, cultivating the fire elemental formula was simply twice the result with half the effort. After 6 hours, Longao finally entered the door. Longao stood up and continuously formed seals with both of his hands. Immediately after, the power of fire element shot forward fiercely like sharp swords. Longao was very confident in the power of the fire elemental formula. With the fire elemental formula, even if he fought against a peak Saint King, he could easily kill one. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A figure flashed. Fortunately, he had sensed it in time. Otherwise, who knew what the consequences would be? Longao's face became extremely sunken when he saw the several dozen Saint Kings appear before him. He had never thought that the 3 great organizations would still try to deal with him while he was still in the scorching flames. They were basically out of their minds. The goal of the Serene Hades Mansion and the Martial Artists Alliance was clear. Under normal circumstances, the 3 forces should ally with each other to fight against the Martial Artists Alliance and the Serene Hades Mansion. But what about the 3 major forces? Thinking of all sorts of ways to deal with him, Longao was very puzzled. Even if he died, what good would it do to the 3 major forces? Longao didn't evade. He had just made a small achievement in cultivating the fire elemental art, and he also wanted to try out the power of the fire elemental art. If it was outside, Longao wouldn't choose to fight force with force. However, inside the raging flames incinerate the heavens, the situation was completely different. This was because he could continuously absorb the power of the flames around him. In this way, the power of the fire elemental art could directly double. Because of this, Longao chose to strike first to gain the initiative. The power of the fire elemental art was like a sharp sword, constantly attacking the surrounding Saint Kings. In the blink of an eye, the 2 sides were locked in battle. All the Saint Kings were shocked because no one had expected Longao to take the initiative to attack them. Moreover, he was so powerful. As everyone knew, Longao was only a Saint King. The difference between a Saint King and a Saint King was huge. They weren't even on the same level. Not far away. Great Emperor Wei Lin, Great Emperor Longyang, and Great Emperor Shun He's expressions changed when they saw Longao fighting against his subordinates. Although the raging flames incinerate the heavens was very powerful, it was more than enough to deal with great emperors and titled great emperors. However, the 3 of them didn't relax at all because they clearly knew that there were 10 levels of purgatory. The raging flames incinerate the heavens was only the first level of purgatory. The 3 of them didn't personally take action, not because they were worried that they wouldn't be a match for Longao. There was only one thing that the 3 of them were truly worried about, and that was the mysterious divine artifact on Longao's body, especially since the 3 of them had personally witnessed Longao refine 30 Saint Kings into corpse slaves in a short hour. Because of this, the 3 of them were very wary. Therefore, they sent out the remaining Saint Kings to test Longao. They wanted to see what the mysterious artifact on Longao's body was. This test was fine, but the 3 of them had never imagined that Longao would be so powerful. With his strength alone, he wasn't at a disadvantage at all. Moreover, he seemed to be borrowing the power of the flames in the surroundings. What should we do now? Longao is too unpredictable. In just a few days, Longao has already grown to such a level. It really makes me feel ashamed. If it were before, I would have killed him without hesitation. But now, we have to reconsider our relationship with Longao. Shun He and Wei Ling nodded in agreement. Shin He said, Brother Long is right. The Nether Mansion is now controlled by the Martial Artists Alliance. If nothing unexpected happens, the Nether Mansion is now the overlord of the 9-province continent. Even if we leave, we can only become their subsidiary. The grudges between us are small. Fighting against the Martial Artists Alliance is a big deal. You're right. Longao's million corpse slaves are right there. If we join forces, we might be able to turn things around in the future. Speaking up to here, Shunhe felt a little depressed. If it was just the Nether Mansion, it would be fine. With the 3 of them working together, destroying the Nether Mansion would not be difficult. But now, the situation was different. The Nether Mansion had the support of the Martial Artists Alliance. It was almost impossible for the three of them to turn things around. Making a comeback? Was it possible? In fact, the three of them knew very well that unless a superforce like the Long family or the Wansho sect intervened, there was almost no chance for them to succeed. In other words, whether they joined forces with the Longao or not, the result would be the same. Thinking up to here, Shun He, Wei Ling, and Long Yang looked at each other and saw a trace of determination in each other's eyes. To kill or not to kill? Kill. Kill. In an instant, the three of them unanimously decided to kill Long Ao. Since the situation could not be reversed, they would kill Long Ao first. No matter what, the grudges between them and Long Ao were unavoidable. Long Ao and the four forces had a life and death grudge. The three of them could not wait to tear Long Ao into pieces. If Long Ao could help them make a comeback, it would be fine. But now, Long Ao was almost useless. Why not kill him? It was still that sentence. Long Ao's variables were too big. No one knew what would happen to Long Ao in the future. The three of them were almost certain that if Long Ao fully matured, the first people he would deal with would be them. They might be able to become puppets under the Nether Mansion, but under Long Ao's hands, they would be killed without a doubt. Thinking up to here, the three of them waved their hands at the same time. 30 Saint Venerables instantly rushed out, their killing intent surging. Chapter 757. Long Ao was already having a hard time dealing with the Saint Emperor. Now that there were 30 Saint Venerables, it was even more difficult for him to move an inch. Moreover, Long Ao had already promised Long Fu that he would help him obtain the so-called flame crystal no matter what. With no other choice, Long Ao could only use all his trump cards. His innate ability, Dragon Roar, spatial teleportation, his self-created martial technique, Sorrow of Heaven and Earth, and the fire movement art that he had just mastered. Even so, Long Ao was still unable to fight against 30 Saint Venerables. This was the difference in cultivation level, and it was 2 levels above. It seemed difficult to make up for it with other things. It was precisely because of this that everyone, including the 30 Saint Venerables, did not take Long Ao seriously. Once a person became arrogant, they would relax. In any case, he was bound to win. Just as everyone was filled with confidence, Long Ao seized a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This time, Long Ao did not use any other trump cards. Long Ao knew very well that once he missed the opportunity, it would be very difficult to continue. It was precisely because of this that Long Ao's attack was a soul attack. Moreover, it was a soul attack that had fused with a formation. Under normal circumstances, with Long Ao's level of formation skills, it was impossible for him to do this. However, Long Ao was so heaven-defying. If Yu Wushuang knew about this, who knew what Yu Wushuang would think? Raging flames incinerate the heavens. Long Ao's soul formation attack was not only fused with the formation, but it even fused with the fire movement art to absorb the surrounding flame energy. With so many layers, one could imagine the power of the soul formation attack. The burning sky formation was a myriad of formations. Long Ao chose to fuse the destruction formation with the soul attack. Swoosh! The invisible soul that had fused with the flame energy instantly shot out. In order to hit the target with one hit, Long Ao suddenly roared and flew up. Everyone was shocked by Long Ao. Could it be that this kid was scared silly? Before anyone could react, 3 miserable cries rang out. Soon after, the 3 Saint Sovereigns collapsed to the ground, never to get up again. The 3 Saint Venerables were dead? What exactly happened? What happened just now? Everyone stared blankly at the scene in front of them. Could this be Long Ao's doing? Everyone swallowed hard. No one had seen Long Ao's attack, and no one knew how Long Ao had killed 3 Saint Venerables. Everyone froze on the spot, including the 3 titled Great Emperors. Overjoyed, Long Ao naturally would not miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was also at this moment that Long Ao's body disappeared. With spatial teleportation, Long Ao suddenly appeared before the 2 holy venerates. He chuckled and did not give the 2 holy venerates any time to react. Then, the divine dragon arm and the underworld tiger arm struck the 2's temples. Boom, 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 boom. Two loud sounds rang out, and the two holy venerates' bodies flew back like kites with their strings cut. Plop, plop. The two holy venerates crashed into the ground. They tried to get up with much difficulty, but they still fell in the end. Xiao Chun smashed two holy venerates to death with one punch. In just a few seconds, 5 holy venerates died at Longao's hands. Was this for real? Longao can kill 5 holy venerates in 2 moves. If there are no surprises, the divine equipment he has should be very powerful. The 3 of them did not believe that with Longao's strength, he would be able to kill 5 holy venerables by himself. Therefore, the 3 of them believed that Longao was able to succeed by relying on his divine tool. It would be a lie to say that they did not want such a strong divine equipment. The 3 people's eyes lit up and their faces were full of greed. They couldn't wait to go up and snatch this divine tool from Longao's hands. However, Longao's action just now gave the 3 of them a fright. Without full confidence, the 3 of them definitely wouldn't act rashly. Seeing the 5 corpses on the ground, everyone took 10 steps back and looked at Longao in fear. Longao wore black clothes and had long scarlet hair. Amid the raging flames, he looked like a god of war descending. It was like he had the boldness to kill anyone in his way. Whoever dares to provoke me again will be killed without mercy. Longao was truly enraged. Originally, he thought that he did not want to implicate the ordinary disciples or even some strong cultivators in his grudge with the 4 factions. However, after experiencing danger again and again, Longao finally understood one thing. The more you give in, the more the other party wants a yard after taking an inch. If this continued, he would suffer a great loss sooner or later. Being merciful to one's enemies was the greatest cruelty to oneself. Longao, do you think you are invincible in this world? Longmaoan. Longao had never liked Longmaoan. As the head of the Long family, he did not know how to raise the level of the Long family and develop the strength of the Long family. Instead, he kept thinking of ways to deal with him. What was the point of having such a family head? However, since things had come to this point, Longao did not even bother to say anything more. He ignored Longmaoan. Looking at the situation, Longamoan was furious. However, Longyang waved his hand and stopped Longamoan. He said, Longao, the grudge between us must be settled and the raging flames incinerate the heavens. I will give you a chance now. F*CKU. Before Longyang could react, Longao suddenly laughed and said, this time, the Martial Artists Alliance suddenly intervened in the 9-state spiritual region. I thought we could form an alliance and fight against the Martial Artists Alliance together. Now, it seems that working with a group of shameless idiots like you is an insult to my character. Fight against the Martial Artists Alliance? Hearing that Longao wanted to fight against the Martial Artists Alliance, everyone laughed as if they had heard the funniest thing in the world. Longao, don't you think you are overestimating yourself? The Martial Artists Alliance was one of the most powerful forces in the world. It was on the same level as the Long family and the Wanshou sect. A small Longao and a newly established dragon sect wanted to fight against the Martial Artists Alliance? Dream on. Longao, if you hand over your sacred artifact, I will consider letting you go. Whether you live or die depends on your luck. Otherwise, this time, Longao did not continue to talk nonsense. He directly threw out a punch. The power of the punch pierced through the air and shot towards Longyang and the others. No one thought that Longao would take the initiative to attack. He was simply courting death. Kill. As the raging flames became more and more powerful, the Saint Emperor could no longer split himself to deal with Longao. Even protecting himself was a serious problem. Therefore, the 3 forces could only send out Saint Venerables. However, Longao had just killed 5 Saint Venerables. The 3 forces were afraid and did not dare to act rashly. They continued to send out Saint Venerables casually. P.S. The remaining 5 chapters will be sent out one by one later. Thank you for your monthly and recommendation tickets. Chapter 758. The Sacred Venerables did not dare to attack. so only the sacred emperors did. The three forces had about the same number of sacred emperors. They all had about 20 of them. The three forces had a total of 60 sacred emperors. In order to be absolutely safe, Wei Ling, Shun He, and Longyang ordered all the sacred emperors to kill Longao. They did not believe that Longao could survive under such circumstances. Just like that, 60 sacred emperors attacked Longao at the same time. Such a scene was rare because under normal circumstances, the sacred emperors would not attack a sacred ruler. It was a matter of status. Moreover, a total of 60 sacred emperors had joined forces. If news of this spread, they would probably laugh their heads off. However, the three of them could not care about anything else now that things had developed to this stage. The three forces only had one goal, which was to kill Longao. As for the matter of face, they had already thrown it aside. Longao was surrounded by 60 sacred emperors and looked on coldly. It would be a lie to say that he was not worried. Although he was very confident in his own strength, Longao knew his own limits. With his strength alone, let alone fighting against 60, it was impossible for him to even fight against one Saint Emperor. Was he going to die here? Longao was not willing to give up. In his mind, he quickly thought of various methods to see if he could avoid this calamity. After thinking about it, Longao could not think of a better way to deal with the 60 sacred emperors. Moreover, there were dozens of great emperors behind the 6 sacred emperors. Even if they took turns to fight him, they could still kill him. Did he have to use the blood pool? In the end, Longao could only think of one way, which was to use the power of the blood pool. He was very confident because he had used the blood pool once before. Its power was needless to say. However, Longao knew very well that once he used the power of the blood pool, he would be devoured by the blood pool. After becoming a puppet, it would be impossible for him to turn the situation around. In other words, if he used the blood pool a second time, he might become a killing tool in the future. Should he use the power of the blood pool? Or should he not use the power of the blood pool? For a moment, Longao didn't know how to choose. With the help of spatial teleportation, Longao did not clash head-on with the 60 Saint Emperors. This way, he could be considered to have escaped the encirclement for the time being. However, Longao knew that this was not a long-term solution. Master, follow my aura and help me find the flame crystal. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao almost staggered and fell. He never thought that Long Fu would ask him to look for flame crystals at this time. He couldn't even control himself. However, he had already promised Longao. If he didn't go, it would seem a bit unkind. As a result, Longao constantly used spatial teleportation and disappeared. Even Saint Emperors and Great Emperors could not catch up to him. Just like that, Longao quickly shot toward the southeast under Long Fu's guidance. Longao's speed was simply too fast. He didn't give anyone a chance to catch up to him. Raging flames incinerate. The entire space wasn't too big. It was like a small city with flames everywhere. Following Long Fu's guidance, after about 10 minutes, Longao arrived at the center of Raging Flames Incinerate. This was also the core of Raging Flames Incinerate. This was also where the Raging Flames Incinerate was the strongest. Not to mention Longao, even the 3 titled Great Emperors didn't dare to get close. Seeing Longao's body disappear into the flames, everyone was at a loss. After thinking for a while, everyone could guess what Longao meant. What do you guys think? It seems like Longao knows that he's going to die. Therefore, he would rather commit suicide than be killed by us. Shun He and Might nodded in agreement. The 3 of them obviously knew that the place in front of them was the strongest part of Raging Flames Incinerate. Even they didn't dare to casually get close. Sigh, it doesn't matter if Longao dies. It's just a pity that the mysterious divine tool is gone. Alright, this lad is dead. We don't have to worry about him anymore. Let's hurry up and cultivate. If nothing goes wrong, the second sky of purgatory shouldn't be so simple. Longao had died, so no one dared to be careless. They immediately found a place to sit down. While resisting the surrounding flames, they cultivated with the help of the flames. At the center of Raging Flames Incinerate, when Longao stepped in, he felt as though he had sunk into a volcano. If it wasn't for the protection of the immemorial divine dragon's power, he would have turned into ashes and disappeared without a trace. Long Fu didn't need to say anything. Longao had already guessed that the so-called flame crystal stone was definitely here. Although this place was very dangerous, the three major forces didn't dare to get close. It could be considered as a temporary escape. However, Longao was very clear that if this continued, he wouldn't be able to endure until the second sky of purgatory. After all, the flames here were too terrifying. Before Longao could find Long Fu's figure appeared. Long Fu, what should we do now? Long Fu obviously knew what his master meant. After thinking for a while, he said, "Master, this is the center of raging flames incinerate. Not only is the flame crystal stone here, Master can also use the fire elemental art to continuously absorb the flames. If nothing goes wrong, Master should be able to break through the peak of Saint King Realm in the remaining time." Hearing this, Long Ao's face was filled with joy. "Long Fu, I'll help you get the flame crystal stone first." "Master, as I said just now, it would take at least 3 days. However, you will enter the second sky of purgatory soon. There is no time at all. Let me think." Long Ao didn't speak because he didn't know what to do. After all, as Long Fu said, he had already wasted a lot of time. He would enter the second sky of purgatory soon. In this way, even if he cultivated with all his might, he wouldn't be able to catch up. What should he do? After thinking for a while, Long Fu raised his head and said, "Master, if you take the flame crystal stone now, you will definitely be discovered by the Martial Artists Alliance. There is only one way. The moment you enter the second sky of purgatory, take the flame crystal stone. At that time, I will use the fastest speed to transfer a small part of the energy in the flame crystal stone to you. I believe that you will only need 2 hours to break through the peak of Saint King Realm." Although Long Fu's method was simple, Long Ao was very clear that this was extremely dangerous. If he relaxed slightly and was discovered by the Martial Artists Alliance, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, things had already come to this point. No matter what, he had to get the flame crystal stone, not only for Long Fu, but also for himself. After all, if he cultivated normally, who knew how long it would take to break through the peak of Saint King Realm from intermediate Saint King Realm? But now, with the help of the flame crystal stone, he only needed 2 hours to break through from intermediate Saint King Realm to peak Saint King Realm. Chapter 759. Long Ao sat quietly in the land of flames. At this moment, Long Ao already knew where the flame crystal rock was. He was now waiting for the arrival of the second sky of purgatory. 1 day and 1 night passed in the blink of an eye. Just a second before the arrival of the second sky of purgatory, Long Ao's body moved. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't be able to find the whereabouts of the flame crystal rock. However, Long Ao was different. With the help of Long Fu, he easily found it. Long Ao, who had just obtained the flame crystal rock, was suddenly enveloped by a white light. In the next moment, he disappeared without a trace. Second sky of purgatory, everlasting illusory realm. As for the second heavens of purgatory, everyone was already clear about it. Everyone's expression was somewhat unsightly. This was because in order to successfully pass through the everlasting illusory realm, one had to first break through the illusion. Before everyone started, a white light flashed and Long Ao's body suddenly appeared. Looking at Long Ao in front of them, everyone was completely dumbfounded. This was because they had always thought that Long Ao had committed suicide. Since that was the case, why would he appear in the second sky of purgatory? The second sky of purgatory's everlasting illusory realm was different from the first sky of purgatory's raging flames burning the heavens. The three major powers had no chance to deal with Long Ao because the illusory realm had already arrived. The illusory realm was actually the so-called illusory array. Those who entered the everlasting illusory realm without using the illusory array had a very small chance of successfully leaving. This was because the more powerful one was, the more powerful the illusory array would be. Long Ao was different. He cultivated arrays, especially illusory arrays, which focused on comprehension. In the Burning the Heavens array, Longao was very clear that the illusory array was the most powerful and also the most difficult to comprehend. However, after this period of comprehension, Longao could be considered to have made some achievements. Because of this, when Longao stepped into the second sky of Purgatory's everlasting illusory realm, his expression changed slightly. This was because he could clearly feel that the illusory array of the second sky of Purgatory, which was the so-called everlasting illusory realm, was very powerful. He didn't dare to be careless. At that moment, Longao's surroundings changed. He first arrived at the Flowing Cloud sect, and the scenes of him and Yu Yin appeared once again. If you don't leave, I'll stay by your side in life and death. In the next scene, the scene suddenly changed again. Yu Yin was killed in a mysterious place. Although Longao clearly knew that the scene in front of him was just an illusion, he still couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. It was heart-wrenching. Longao almost collapsed. At this time, the illusion suddenly split into two. Not only did Yu Yin appear, but the so-called Aoshue also appeared. It was also a mysterious place. Aoshue had fainted for the 9th time and was on the verge of death. In other words, the two most important women in his life had fallen. What a powerful illusion array. Fortunately, he already knew that the second sky of Purgatory was an illusion test. Otherwise, he would have been cheated. Longao had studied illusion arrays before, so he didn't act rashly. He focused on finding the array core of the illusion array because only by finding the array core could he break the illusion array. In the boundless space, Longao stood quietly with his eyes closed. Even so, the illusion array still silently entered his mind. Even so, Longao still firmly guarded his heart and wasn't affected by the illusion array. Longao himself was an array master and had studied illusion arrays before. It could be said that he pulled himself back from the precipice and pulled himself back in time. Everyone from the three major forces wasn't too optimistic. After all, the illusion array was stronger against stronger opponents. Even Wei Ling, Shun He, and Long Yang, the three titled Great Emperors, couldn't withstand the attack of the illusion array. In just a few minutes, the remaining people from the Nether Mansion had all fallen. As for the people from the other three major forces, people gradually began to fall. Even the Saint Emperors couldn't withstand it. There were 10 levels of Purgatory, and each level was stronger than the previous. The power of the second sky of Purgatory was far stronger than the first sky of Purgatory. One could imagine how powerful the third sky of Purgatory was. After a few hours of searching, Longao still couldn't find the array core. This meant that he couldn't break the illusion array at all. However, Longao was no longer worried. The reason was simple. Although he couldn't break the array couldn't hurt him either. It was because of this that Longao immediately sat on the ground. He had already successfully obtained the fire crystal. According to Long Fu, once he refined it and obtained 1/10 of its power, it would be enough to raise his cultivation level to the peak Holy King realm. In the 8th stage of the illusionary divine realm, only by breaking through to the peak Holy King realm would one be able to break through to the Holy King realm. In a short 2 hours, Long Fu had already communicated with Longao. He went straight to the point and said, "Master, the fire crystal contains more power than I expected. Therefore, you can't devour more power. If you devour too much, you will definitely be devoured by the fire crystal and explode." Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was pleasantly surprised. He had never thought that the fire crystals he obtained from the raging flames burning the heavens in the first heaven of the Purgatory would contain so much power. Long Fu, how much power can I obtain? Longao didn't care about how much power the fire crystal contained. He only cared about one thing, and that was how much power he could obtain. Of course, Long Fu knew what Longao was thinking. After thinking for a while, he said, "Master, I've just calculated. According to the power contained in this fire crystal, you can obtain about 1% of its power. In this way, in an hour, I'm confident that your cultivation will be able to break through to the peak of the Saint King realm." Before Longao could speak, Long Fu continued, 1% of its power is enough for you to break through to the peak Holy King realm. Next, I will leave you with 2% of its power. At that time, you can use the power of the fire crystal to break through to the Holy King realm." Hearing this, Longao was pleasantly surprised. "Long Fu, forgive me for being blunt. Since 3% of its power is enough for me to break through to the Holy King realm from the intermediate Holy King realm, why can't I devour more power? In this way, won't I be able to become a great emperor? Or even a titled great emperor?" Longao was very curious about this. Since the power of the fire crystal was so great, if he devoured all of it, not to mention great emperors, titled great emperors, or even gods, he would be able to break through directly. However, Longao was also a little curious. If Long Fu was unwilling to give him power, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Even if Long Fu didn't restore the dragon seal, he would definitely help him break through to a higher realm. There was no doubt about that. Therefore, Longao was a little curious. It seemed that this matter wasn't as simple as he had imagined. What was going on? After thinking for a while, Longao couldn't figure it out. Therefore, he could only ask Long Fu to clarify. Chapter 760. In the current situation, Longao really needed power. He knew very well that the higher his cultivation, the more advantageous it would be for him. "Master, I know what you're thinking. The power of the fire crystal is too strong. Under normal circumstances, you won't be able to swallow the fire crystal." "I see." Longao knew that Long Fu would not be unwilling. "Master, I can refine the fire crystal, but only 3% at most. If it's more, I'm afraid you won't be able to take it and will suffer a backlash." Long Fu did not say anything, but the meaning in his words was very clear. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he heard it clearly. Nodding, Longao went straight to the point. "Long Fu, if there are no accidents, why don't we start now?" Long Fu obviously knew that his master was anxious. Without any hesitation, he immediately sent the 1% of the refined power into Long Ao's body. Long Ao was shocked, pleasantly surprised. He immediately began cultivating with all his might. Just as Long Fu had said, in just an hour, Long Ao's cultivation broke through from mid-level Saint Ruler to peak Saint Ruler with the help of the fire crystal. After successfully breaking through, Long Ao asked somewhat impatiently, "Long Fu, I've already absorbed 1% of the power and broke through from mid-level Saint Ruler to peak Saint Ruler. When will you give me the remaining 2%? Long Fu had just said that once he absorbed the remaining 2%, his cultivation could break through to Saint King. Shrugging helplessly, Long Fu said helplessly, "Master, with your current cultivation, you can't continue absorbing the power of the fire crystal." "Why is that?" Long Ao was very surprised. He did not know why he could not continue absorbing the power of the fire crystal. Under normal circumstances, since he had already absorbed the power of the fire crystal and broken through to peak Saint Ruler, why could he not continue absorbing the power of the fire crystal and break through to Saint King? But what was the result? "Master, there's something you don't know. You've just broken through to peak stage Holy King and have yet to consolidate your cultivation. If you immediately devour the remaining 2% of power now." Although Long Fu did not finish his words, the meaning in his words was very clear. So that was the case. Although Long Ao was very unwilling in his heart and somewhat impatient, if there was a danger of backlash, then it was better to wait. His cultivation had already successfully broken through to peak stage Saint King. Long Ao did not continue to hesitate. He immediately began to search for the formation cores in the surroundings. If he could not find the formation cores in a short period of time, he would not be able to break through the illusion formation. He would also not be able to successfully pass through the first heaven of purgatory and enter the second heaven of purgatory. First sky of purgatory. Raging flames incinerate the heavens. Second sky of purgatory. Limitless illusion array. After searching around, Long Ao still couldn't find the array eye of the infinite illusory array. With no other choice, he could only use the burning sky array art to try and see if he could break the so-called infinite illusory array. The burning sky array art had a total of more than 30 types of illusory arrays. Among them, There were at least 3 types of illusory arrays that were more powerful than the infinite illusory array. But what made Longao's balls hurt was that he could not truly comprehend the path of illusory arrays in the burning sky array art. As such, it was still a little difficult to break the infinite illusory array. Could it be that he would be trapped in the infinite illusory array just like that? At this moment, Longao's eyes narrowed because he realized something. With the power of the 5 elements heaven-swallowing art, although he could not break the infinite illusory array, he could see what he wanted to see. A scene appeared in midair in front of Longao. It was also considered a spatial projection. There were all kinds of scenes on it. They were all scenes of everyone from the 3 major forces, including Wei Ling, Shun He, and Long Yang resisting the illusory array. Longao roughly calculated. In just 2 hours, the 3 major forces had lost almost 1/3 of their people. As for the Nether Mansion, they had been completely annihilated. Although Longao had already guessed this result, he was still very surprised when he saw it for himself. After careful observation, he realized that the 3 titled Great Emperors were indeed very powerful. No matter what, the infinite illusory array would become stronger when facing a strong opponent. The stronger the 3 titled Great Emperors were, the more terrifying the illusory array they saw would be. Even so, the 3 of them still persevered. We have successfully passed. Seeing that the 3 titled Great Emperors had successfully passed through the infinite illusory array, Longao wasn't very unwilling. As for the remaining people, they were all bitterly persevering. They could be killed by the illusory array at any time and die in the second sky of purgatory. Longao didn't care about the remaining people. He knew that he couldn't continue to be trapped in the illusory array. Otherwise, who knew what would happen in the future? Longao wasn't a fool. Since he could see different scenes with the help of the 5 elements heaven-swallowing art, then wouldn't he be able to break the infinite illusory array with the help of the 5 elements heaven-swallowing art? Longao wouldn't let go of any opportunity. The 10 heavens of purgatory were only at the second sky of purgatory. What about the remaining 8 heavens of purgatory? Since things had already reached this stage, Longao didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately circulated the 5 elements heaven-swallowing art, metal elemental art, wood elemental art, water elemental art, fire elemental art, and earth elemental art. Although he hadn't truly comprehended the essence of the 5 elements art, Longao had already begun to learn the basics of the earth elemental art and fire elemental art. He could be considered to have grasped the 5 elements heaven-swallowing art. Just as expected, Longao was overjoyed. With the guidance of the 5 elements heaven-swallowing art, he slowly headed towards the northwest direction. As expected, he found the eye of the infinite illusory array. Without any hesitation, he directly broke the eye of the array, which was also breaking the infinite illusory array. He successfully passed through the second sky of purgatory and entered the third sky of purgatory. Third sky of purgatory. According to Lei Luo, no matter who it was, as long as they successfully passed through the third sky of purgatory, they could request to leave at any time. If they wanted to continue, they could directly enter the next sky. Until now, Longao was still very depressed. Because according to Lei Luo, once one successfully passed through the third sky of purgatory from the 10th sky of purgatory, one's cultivation would have a significant breakthrough. But now, not only him, he believed that it was the same for others. If he hadn't obtained the power of the flame crystal, his cultivation wouldn't have been able to directly break through from the intermediate Holy King to the peak Holy King. However, things had already reached this stage. There was no point in saying more. The most important thing was to successfully pass through the 10th sky of purgatory. Longao had already decided that no matter what happened, no matter how dangerous the 10th sky of purgatory was, he had to try and see if he could pass through the 10th sky of purgatory. In other words, even if he could successfully pass through the third sky of purgatory, he wouldn't be able to leave the purgatory space. Third sky of purgatory, Three-Eyed Divine General. According to the information given by the 10th sky of purgatory, the test in the third sky of purgatory was to defeat the divine general guarding the third sky of purgatory, which was the so-called Three-Eyed Divine General. P.S. The 8th chapter has been delivered. The last 2 chapters will be delivered after midnight. As for the exact time, Little Nine can only hurry. Chapter 761. Third Heaven of Purgatory. The Three-Eyed General was the same as the limitless illusion formation. As the warrior's strength increased, the Three-Eyed General's strength corresponded. In other words, Longao's cultivation was only at peak Saint King, so the Three-Eyed General's strength would also be suppressed to peak Saint King. If Longao's cultivation broke through to Divine Path, then the Three-Eyed General's strength would also rise to Divine Path realm. In front of Longao, it was a green giant, about 3 meters tall. His limbs were longer than an average person's. Especially on the green giant's face, there were 3 eyes. Before Longao could react, the Three-Eyed General had already attacked fiercely. To be honest, Longao had never put the Three-Eyed General in his eyes. From his point of view, no martial artist of the same level was his match. But in the end, what Longao did not expect was that when he fought with the Three-Eyed General, Longao was shocked. Because he realized something. Although the Three-Eyed General was only at peak Saint King realm, his true strength was even above Saint Emperor, which was peak Saint Emperor. Shameless, despicable. Such a test was simply unfair. But after thinking about it, Longao knew that if the 10 levels of purgatory were really fair, then it would not be full of danger. Not daring to be careless, Longao focused on fighting against the Three-Eyed General. The Three-Eyed General did not have any martial techniques, only brute force. But even so, every move of the Three-Eyed General was a killer move. As long as one was hit, one would definitely be killed. The Three-Eyed General and Longao went back and forth. In the blink of an eye, they had already fought for 30 rounds. There was no clear winner. But Longao knew clearly that he was made of flesh and blood. As for the Three-Eyed General, who knew if he was a human or something. If he was immortal, then it would be really troublesome. Because of this, Longao wanted to end the battle quickly. Innate ability, Dragon Roar. Powerful dragon breath spread in all directions. When it enveloped the Three-Eyed General, Longao thought that his opponent would be locked on by his innate ability. But the result? The Three-Eyed General was not targeted by the innate ability at all. What was going on? Longao was shocked. Through his senses, Longao finally discovered something. The Three-Eyed General he was fighting was a lord without a soul at all. It was also because of this that his innate ability was unable to lock onto the Three-Eyed General. Without a soul, this matter would be difficult. What should he do? After thinking about it, Longao realized that it was not easy to kill a soulless monster. In the end, Longao prepared to use the wild blood saber to deal with the Three-Eyed Divine General. Longao slashed again and again, and the saber light streaked across the sky. The Three-Eyed General did not dodge at all. In other words, the Three-Eyed General took the saber light head-on. Longao was shocked by the Three-Eyed General's actions. It seemed that the Three-Eyed General wasn't simple at all. Master, you can't defeat the Three-Eyed General. Long Fu, why is that? I just sensed the third sky of purgatory and the Three-Eyed General. I don't know who did this. Although the Three-Eyed General is still at the peak of the Saint King realm, he has the strength of a Saint Master. Therefore, with your strength, you can't be a match for the Three-Eyed General, let alone kill him. The strength of a Saint Master. Longao finally knew why he couldn't defeat the Three-Eyed General. There was no need to guess. Longao already knew that this must be the doing of the Martial Artists Alliance. Otherwise, who could do such a thing in the 10th sky of purgatory? Long Fu, what should I do now? Longao knew very well that if he didn't know what to do, Long Fu would definitely not stand up. Therefore, he was completely sure that Long Fu knew how to deal with Long Fu. Just as expected, Long Fu thought for a while and said, Master, a Saint Master isn't that difficult to deal with. However, with your current strength, you can't defeat him. Therefore, we can only use our strength and use our wits. Only use our wits and not our strength? Longao was very curious. He didn't know what Long Fu meant. Long Fu, what should I do? It's very simple. Master, if it was the previous me, I wouldn't be able to help you. However, I've already refined a portion of the flame crystal you just obtained. The dragon seal space has also recovered and improved greatly. Therefore, it's more than enough to deal with a small saint master. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was delighted. With Long Fu's help, Longao also relaxed. He didn't continue to attack and stood aside obediently, waiting for Long Fu to attack. Seeing Longao suddenly stop, the three-eyed general continued to attack expressionlessly. However, at this moment, Long Fu's figure suddenly appeared. Borrowing the power of the dragon seal space, Long Fu directly enveloped the three-eyed general. Terrifying power covered the sky and earth as he attacked. The awe-inspiring three-eyed general was instantly crushed under Long Fu's powerful attack. Not even a speck of dust was left. Looking at the three-eyed general that had been obliterated, Longao was pleasantly surprised. Longao had never imagined that he would be able to deal with the three-eyed general so easily. This also meant that he had successfully passed through the third sky of purgatory. It was up to him whether he would continue to stay in the 10th sky of purgatory. Having successfully passed through the third sky of purgatory, Longao was very curious. He didn't know what the reward that Lei Luo spoke of was. According to Lei Luo, as long as he could successfully pass through the third sky of purgatory, it would be easy for him to break through a level. Because of this, Longao became even more expectant and curious. At this moment, a message suddenly appeared in Longao's mind. It was something along the lines of congratulations. At this moment, Longao finally knew what the reward for passing through the third sky of purgatory was. In other words, the rewards for the first, second, and third sky of purgatory would all be added together. Before Longao could react, a special energy rapidly entered his body. Longao could clearly sense that this energy was very powerful. It didn't seem to be any weaker than the energy that Long Fu had just given him. He was overjoyed. It seemed that he could continue to break through with the help of this energy. Breaking through to the Saint King realm shouldn't be a problem. However, at this moment, the energy that had just entered Longao's body was forcefully expelled by Long Fu. He had no idea what was going on. After all, he still needed this mysterious energy to break through to the Saint King realm. But now? Long Fu, what's going on? Master, there's a shocking secret behind this. If this energy hadn't entered your body, I wouldn't have been able to sense it. But now, I've finally discovered that something is wrong. Author's note: the 9th chapter has been delivered. The last chapter will be delivered tomorrow morning. It's already 1:30. I'm so sleepy. Chapter 762. Hearing Long Fu's words, Longao was also shocked. Longao was not a fool. Of course, he knew that things were not that simple. What was going on? Longao did not ask, because he knew that Long Fu would definitely tell him. Master, the reward given to you by the 10 levels of purgatory is very strange. Although I don't know who is behind it, I am 100% sure that once you refine this power and break through to the next level, you will become someone's puppet. His heart skipped a beat. Longao had guessed countless possibilities, but he did not think of this possibility. If Long Fu had not told him personally, he would not have believed it even if he was beaten to death. Long Fu did not need to say more. Longao had already guessed what had happened. Until now, Longao was still a little scared. Just as Long Fu had said, if he had refined the power he had just received, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Puppet? Whose puppet would he have become? Master, you have to remember, even if you successfully pass the remaining 10 levels of purgatory, you must not accept any rewards. Otherwise, Long Fu did not finish his words, but the meaning in his words was very clear. Longao nodded. How could he not know what Long Fu meant? It seemed that everything was a trap set up by the Martial Artists Alliance. The purgatory space, in name, was the so-called holy land for cultivation, but in reality, it was a place to increase anyone's strength and then turn them into a puppet. He had to admit that the Martial Artists Alliance was indeed shameless and despicable. If Long Fu had not reminded him in time, even he would have been tricked by the Martial Artists Alliance. Although he was very angry that he did not accept the reward, he still gained something from entering the 10 levels of purgatory. First of all, he found the flame crystal that Long Fu had mentioned. Not only was it very helpful in repairing the dragon seal, but his cultivation had also directly broken through to the peak of the Holy King realm. Master, are you going to leave the purgatory space or continue to pass the levels? Continue. Long Fu wasn't surprised at all that his master was preparing to continue. If it were anyone else, just like the three major forces and the three titled great emperors, all of them would choose to give up on leaving the purgatory space. Only Longao chose to continue. Master, the 10 heavens of purgatory. If nothing unexpected happens, you don't have the strength to accept the reward, so you can't continue. Longao was very surprised. No matter what, this was only Long Fu's guess. He still wanted to try. But as expected, before he could enter the 4th layer of the purgatory, his body had already disappeared into the 10th layer. Longao cursed in his heart. Although he couldn't obtain the reward power, he still valued the experience of the 10 heavens of purgatory. However, just as Long Fu had said, without the reward power, he wouldn't be able to enter the 4 heavens of purgatory, let alone the trials of purgatory. Within the valley, more than 300 people from the 3 major forces entered the purgatory space. However, less than 30 people from each force came out alive. This meant that they had lost 2/3 of their forces. But without exception, except for the 3 titled great emperors, everyone's cultivation had increased by a lot. However, Longao was very clear that everyone from the 3 major forces had accepted the reward. While they had broken through their realms, they had unknowingly become puppets of the Martial Artists Alliance. Longao saw the people from the 3 major forces. At the same time, the 3 major forces also saw Longao. Because of this, everyone was shocked. Everyone thought that Longao would definitely die in the purgatory space this time. But what was the result? But since things had already reached this stage, no one dared to say anything. Lei Luo, who was standing in front of them, was very surprised. However, he was also extremely excited. This was because Longao had successfully passed the 3 trials of purgatory. If there were no accidents, then Longao should have received the reward power. If that was the case, then Longao was basically a puppet of the Martial Artists Alliance. Congratulations to all of you for successfully passing the 3 heavens of purgatory. I will inform the Martial Artists Alliance about what happened today as soon as possible. Alright, you guys go to your own things. Lei Luo didn't say anything else. He immediately turned around and disappeared without a trace. As soon as Lei Luo disappeared, Longao didn't stay any longer. This was because he knew that although the 3 major forces had lost 2/3 of their forces in the purgatory space, the remaining people were more than enough to kill him. Kill? Wait. Shunhei stopped everyone and said seriously, the Martial Artists Alliance's intention is very clear. If there are no accidents, I believe that the 9 states continent has become the world of the Serene Hades Mansion. In other words, the Martial Artists Alliance is the puppet of the Serene Hades Mansion. Hearing Shunhei's words, everyone's expression changed. This was because they had already guessed it, but they didn't want to believe it. So, our top priority now is to go back as soon as possible and see if there is a way to save the situation. Wei Ling and Long Yang nodded. Then, the 3 of them led their subordinates and rushed toward the Imperial City, the Ethereal Palace, and the Long family. As soon as they left, Lei Luo and Wei Yang suddenly appeared. Master Lei Luo, the Serene Hades Mansion has already taken over the 9 states continent. But if the 3 major forces strongly oppose it, what should we do? Do we have to destroy the 3 major forces? Wei Yang was more or less a little worried, because he knew that as long as the Martial Artists Alliance didn't take action personally, it wouldn't be easy for the Serene Hades Mansion to destroy the 3 major forces in a short time. Of course, Wei Yang was selfish. He didn't want to become the puppet of the Martial Artists Alliance. Because of this, Wei Yang had already thought that it would be best if he could make the 3 major forces into the Serene Hades Mansion's puppets. Even if he couldn't do it, he didn't want to deal with the 3 major forces alone. If the Martial Artists Alliance could take action, it would be twice the result with half the effort. Lei Luo nodded and said, put aside the Imperial City, the Long family, and the Ethereal Palace. Also, you don't have to worry about the dragon sect. Master Lei Luo, why? Hearing Lei Luo's words, Wei Yang was shocked. Because he was determined to deal with the Longao and the dragon sect. If he couldn't do it, he wouldn't be able to swallow his anger. Moreover, Longao's talent and potential were obvious. There were too many variables. If they didn't eliminate him completely, who knew what would happen in the future? Because of this, Wei Yang was furious. He couldn't figure out why the Martial Artists Alliance didn't deal with the Longao and the dragon sect. What on earth had happened? P.S. Yesterday's 10th chapter has been delivered. Today's 10th chapter will be written immediately. Chapter 763. Waving his hand, Lei Luo's face darkened. Because in Lei Luo's heart, he also wanted to kill Longao. This is the order of the Martial Artists Alliance. Even your master can only do it, let alone you. Even his master can't do anything? Hearing this, Wei Yang was shocked. He knew his master's status and identity in the Martial Artists Alliance. Master Lei Luo, is there any inside story? Lei Luo was obviously very polite to Wei Yang. After all, Wei Yang's master, He Sha, was above him in both strength and status. Long family. Lei Luo only said a few simple words, which was the Long family. Because of this, Wei Yang didn't say anything more. He had already guessed what Lei Luo meant. Spirit realm of the 9 states. There were 4 forces in total. They were the East Royal City, the Long family, the South Nether Mansion, and the North Ethereal Palace. However, because of Lei Luo's sudden intervention, all the experts of the Imperial City, the Long family, and the Ethereal Palace had entered the purgatory space. In just half a month, they had lost 2/3 of their manpower. What did this mean? While the 3 forces were in the purgatory space, the Nether Mansion took the opportunity to dominate the spirit realm of the 9 states. The Nether Mansion didn't kill them all. They just forced the 3 forces to retreat to their own places. With all the experts of the 3 forces gone, no sect or family in the spirit realm of the 9 states could compete with the Nether Mansion. Moreover, the Nether Mansion had the support of the Martial Artists Alliance. In this way, the Nether Mansion was like a tiger that had grown wings. When the 3 of them returned to the 9 states with their own forces, they found that the situation had become irreversible. As expected, everyone had guessed it, but when faced with the truth, no one chose to believe it. They didn't want to believe it either. In the past, if the Nether Mansion dared to do this, the 3 forces would definitely work together to deal with them. However, the situation was different now. After all, the Nether Mansion had the support of the Martial Artists Alliance. At this time, choosing to join forces to deal with the Serene Hell Mansion was equivalent to dealing with the Martial Artists Alliance in disguise. Even if the 3 families' original strength was not a match for the Martial Artists Alliance, let alone the current strength of the 3 families. Great Emperor Wei Lin, Great Emperor Long Yang, and Great Emperor Shun, he could only suffer in silence. Because of this, the 3 titled Great Emperors could only choose to accept reality. The 3 major forces had been worried that the Serene Hades Mansion would turn against them after they dominated the Jiuzhou continent. After all, the Serene Hades Mansion was no longer the same as before. If they relied on the Martial Artists Alliance, they would be destroyed in a matter of minutes. Following this, the Serene Underworld Mansion personally requested the 3 major forces to become the Serene Underworld Mansion's subordinates. In the Imperial City, the Long family and the Ethereal Palace did not dare to object. Even if they did not want to, they could only reluctantly agree. In this way, the 3 families became the Nether Mansion's vassals. When the news of the Serene Underworld Mansion dominating the Jiuzhou continent spread, it shocked the entire Jiuzhou continent. This was because no one believed that the Serene Underworld Mansion would suddenly dominate the Jiuzhou continent. What had happened? After the Serene Underworld Mansion successfully subdued the 3 major forces, everyone unanimously believed that the Serene Underworld Mansion would deal with the Dragon Sect in the next moment. This was because everyone knew that the Dragon Sect's strong rise had seriously affected the Serene Underworld Mansion's dominance. But what was the result? Just when everyone thought that the Serene Underworld Mansion would deal with the Dragon Sect, the serene underworld mansion did not make a move. Not only that, the serene underworld mansion did not even enter the Jojo continent. In other words, the serene underworld mansion had given the Jojo continent to Longao. The situation changed again and again, causing everyone to be confused. Why did the serene underworld mansion dominate the Jojo continent, but not the Jojo continent? The Dragon Sect. Longao, who had just returned to the Dragon Sect, immediately went to find his grandfather to discuss. In his opinion, the serene underworld mansion had already dominated the Jojo continent and had the Martial Artists Alliance as its capital. In the short term, no one could compete with the serene underworld mansion. If the Dragon Sect continued to hide, the serene underworld mansion would definitely do all they could to deal with the Dragon Sect. Instead of this, it was better for the Dragon Sect to surface. This way, the Dragon Sect's meaning was very clear. The Dragon Sect had no intention of competing with the serene underworld mansion for the position of overlord. As expected, the Dragon Sect had successfully surfaced, but the serene underworld mansion did not deal with the Dragon Sect. While everyone was curious, Longao was also a little confused. In any case, this was a good thing because the Dragon Sect lacked time the most. In the lobby of the Dragon Sect, Longao did not hide the secrets of the Martial Artists Alliance and the Purgatory Space. He told them everything in detail. After hearing the story, Mu Wanfeng, Wang Yidao, and Long Haosher's expressions were extremely grave. Of course, the three of them knew why the Martial Artists Alliance had done this. Because of this, the three of them had never thought that the serene underworld mansion had been a puppet of the Martial Artists Alliance all this time. This kind of trick was indeed the work of the Martial Artists Alliance. The three of them also knew that this matter was not simple at all. At the very least, with the Dragon Sect's current strength, it was impossible for them to compete with the serene underworld mansion. To be exact, they could not compete with the Martial Artists Alliance. Ao, what do you think about this? Shrugging helplessly, Longao said honestly, I don't know, but I am sure of one thing. The serene underworld mansion must have some tricks up their sleeves for not dealing with the Dragon Sect. Therefore, we must be extra careful and always be on guard against the serene underworld mansion. In response to Longao's words, the three of them nodded in agreement. Ao, you are right. The serene underworld mansion has become the overlord of the spiritual realm of the 9 states, and they have the support of the Martial Artists Alliance. Under normal circumstances, the serene underworld mansion should deal with us. But now, Mu Wanfeng said, the Imperial City, the Ethereal Palace, and the Long family have almost become the Martial Artists Alliance's puppets. In the eyes of the Martial Artists Alliance, Ao has already accepted the reward and become a puppet. If so, why would the Martial Artists Alliance take action? The three of them were well aware of Mu Wanfeng's intentions. Just as the four of them were talking, Long Yi suddenly rushed in. His head was covered in sweat, which made everyone curious. They didn't know what was going on with Long Yi. Father, what happened? Long Ao knew very well that if it was not something serious, his father would not be like this. What happened? Long Haosher and the others were also a little impatient. They did not know what had happened. Long Yi breathed deeply, pointed at the door, and said, Father, Ao, this is not good. Long family's messengers suddenly came, and both of them are obviously warriors of the Supreme Tao. It seems that they are here to cause trouble, so we must be careful. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.